The topic of lost media is all the rage these days. But while everyone and their brother searches for well-known pieces like Saki Sanabashi, Slamfest 99, and old episodes of Doctor Who, there are hundreds, if not thousands of pieces that no one is looking for. These are those pieces. This is lesser-known lost media. Hello, you beautiful members and patrons, and welcome to the LKLMNSFWSC, or the lesser-known Lost Media Not Safe for Work SUPERCUT. I was asked if I could do a supercut of just the Not Safe for Work pieces of my best series on YouTube, and I said sure, but it is going to be a members-only video. With a video like this that takes a good amount of time and effort to piece together, I figure it might be worth at least $1, right? When I was first making the video, I was a little disappointed because I remembered there was I believe it was episode 33, there was no Not Safe for Work entry, and I was like, oh crap, there's not going to be 50 pieces here. But then I did remember in a later video, specifically on the patron exclusive, I talked about a piece of lost media from a previous video that had been found and actually moved into the Not Safe for Work category, due to where it was found. But thank you so much for being a patron or YouTube channel member, and without further ado, here are 50 pieces of Not Safe for Work lost media. Popeye and Betty Boop sex tape. So a lot of you have probably heard about the supposedly lost and unconfirmed unofficial Mickey Minnie cartoon where Mickey and Minnie were drawn having sex that was presented at Walt Disney's birthday party, and as the story goes, he pretended to like it, asked who made it. When it was revealed, he fired the animators and had the tapes destroyed. That's a pretty common, well-known lost media story. But what if I told you that there were two very popular characters from another studio that not only were drawn in a similar fashion, but that it was done by their creator as part of a thank you party for his staff? So Popeye started out as a comic strip character, but was later turned into a cartoon by Fleischer Studios. These were made and created from 1933 to 1957, before Fleischer lost the ability to create the character when production shifted to Associated Artists Productions and MGM. Now, of all these cartoons, there was apparently a pornographic short that was only really ever officially shown once. And this story was first told to us in an article from 2003, where a journalist interviewed people from the old Fleischer studio. And as they tell it, in 1938, Max Fleischer, who created not only Popeye but Betty Boop as well, wanted to thank animators for making the move from New York to their new Florida studio. And he wanted to do this by having a Welcome to Miami party. And according to these animators that attended, there was a special thank you video shown with Popeye and Betty Boop. It was fully animated with complete backgrounds, voice acting, and a music score, and a stylized Florida landscape. It was said to be very funny and starred Popeye coming to visit Betty in Miami, where she gives him a extremely warm welcome. And one of the scenes included Popeye wearing, losing energy during the act and needing to eat some of his trademark spinach to finish the job, so to speak. It was then said that after the party, the film was locked in a safe at Fleischer Studios in Florida and never publicly shown again, but only being shown to special guests of Fleischer himself. And apparently that's where it stayed until 1942, when the Fleischer brothers were kicked out of their studio, and ultimately the reel vanished. Since the article, though, in 2003, interest was renewed in potentially finding this, and some users on the Toon Zone forum, where this was first kind of revealed, have said that they have seen the short in animated pornography tapes in the 1980s, I guess, maybe like on a compilation. But these also have never been found, and ultimately it's unknown where this might be, and even if the article itself was truthful. So it's ultimately a mystery. My take, I definitely think this one existed. Though I think given its history and its disappearance and the time it was created, I think and there was only one print, I think it's long gone. But fortunately, if there's anyone out there who just really wants to see Popeye and Betty Boop going at it, you can probably type in their names, add the word Rule 34, and probably get even way better animated and drawn images of that to your heart's content. Unlike the Mickey Mouse one, which I feel is almost more of a parable than it is an actual thing that happened, I definitely could see this being real, and I definitely think it was, but it has probably been lost to time. Nymphet, which is a lost English printing of the Kodomo no Jikan manga from 2007. Kodomo no Jikan, which translates to A Child's Time, is an adult-oriented manga by Kaworu Watashiya, and it has the unfortunate plot of dealing with an elementary school teacher plagued by the fact that one of his students has a crush on him. And apparently there was a lot of media involving this series. There was a serialized manga between May of 2005 and April of 2013, so this went on for 8 years. It received a 12-episode anime adaptation in 2007, 4 OVAs in late 2009, and a 5th in 2011. And, yeah, but its subject matter is just kind of icky, and it has received a lot of criticism and controversy for that content, which many people outside of Japan have called, rhymes with schmedophilic. So in 2006, Seven Seas Entertainment announced that they were going to license the manga for a English translation, and that it would be coming out in December of that year, but it was delayed for unknown reasons until 2007. Then, on May 29th of 2007, Seven Seas Entertainment had an official press release that came that basically stated that they were dealing with backlash over the series' controversial nature, and they were kind of stuck on what to do, and they delayed the series until they could have a dialogue with large book chains and other vendors about whether or not they'd be allowed to, distribute the series. But one day later, the president of Seven Seas, Jason DeAngelis, said that it's not appropriate for Seven Seas to publish Nymphet. He then went on to say that the primary reason for canceling the publication was due to his recent realization that later volumes in the series could not be considered appropriate for US market for any reasonable standard. On his own personal blog, he even stated his disgust in that there is a scene where the male protagonist gets an erection after his student rubs up against him, which is fucking sick, alright? This is an elementary school teacher. So this media just doesn't exist, right? Wrong. It has been confirmed that a limited number of copies of the first volume were printed before the cancellation, and Amazon now has it listed as out of print, limited availability. So somewhere floating around is this super pervy, awful manga translated into English. As far as I'm concerned, this one can stay lost. At number 5, we have The Exceptions, Episode 6, which is a partially found August Ames pornographic video circa 2017. So today's Not Safe for Work entry is not safe for work not only because it is a missing piece of pornography, but also sort of for the reason it's missing. Now, a little bit of backstory about the video itself. The Exceptions Episode 6 is a pornographic video produced by Brazzers, and it was starring Aaliyah Hadid, August Ames, Callie Carter, Monique Alexander, and Johnny Sins, and was the final installment of the Brazzers Exceptions online pornographic series. Also, it is August Ames' last known Brazzers video. We do have some production photos, which of course I will not be showing on here for obvious reasons, but also we do have a possible description of the scene. And I'm just going to say that if you're listening to this not on headphones, please be aware there is going to be language that you should probably put headphones on. The description is as follows. Good slut Bailey and her new friend Johnny are on the run from evil sluts Monique and August. After a thrilling car chase, the evil sluts have them trapped in an abandoned warehouse. Good slut Luna shows up to save Bailey, but the rescue mission turns into a competitive 4-girl orgy that leaves Bailey wondering if she'd have more fun on the evil side. So, a pretty standard, porno with a plot, so to speak. So why is it missing? Well, it was set to come out on December 7th of 2017, but 2 days prior, August Ames was found in a park in California, having unalived herself by hanging. The reason most commonly attributed with her decision to do this comes from the fact that she made a rather controversial tweet 2 days prior. She was set to star in another pornographic scene, but withdrew when she found out that her co-star was a man who had appeared in gay pornography. And on the 3rd, she wrote the following in a tweet. Whichever lady performer is replacing me tomorrow for @EroticaX News, you're shooting with a guy who has shot gay porn. Just to let you know, BS is all I can say. Do agents really not care who they're representing? LA Direct, I do my homework for my body. Now, this tweet was seen as hugely homophobic, and it resulted in a lot of backlash from people, including from other performers. One, Jackson Wheeler, who is a pansexual performer, demanded that Ames either apologize or take a cyanide pill, and he did later express that he regretted this. Ames had a history of mental illness, and during her autopsy, they found that she had been on cocaine, marijuana, Zoloft, and Xanax, and they determined that it was probably due to all the drugs in her system and her fractured mental state combined with the cyberbullying that led her to choose to unalive herself. Now, while some might take this at face value as a terrible person buckled under the pressure of their terrible views and decided to just take themselves out of the equation, it's actually a lot sadder than that. I personally don't think her tweet was meant to be homophobic at all. In fact, Ames herself was bisexual. One of the things that has been, I don't know if it's currently the state of it, I don't keep up on the politics of pornography, but there were a lot less safeguards in place to protect male-on-male performers from contracting certain STDs, while there were quite a few in place to potentially keep the female performers safe. Apparently, Ames's idea of not wanting to shoot with a male performer who also performed in male-on-male scenes is not uncommon in the adult industry. In fact, it is quite common because of the fear of that there will have been shortcuts taken at some point, and it could be disastrous to their health if these companies didn't take the proper safeguards. And while that is tragic, I can't necessarily say I'm surprised that, if anything, adult entertainment is one of the few industries in the world where women have the power and they are the real breadwinners and the moneymakers. Women performers make 10 times what men do. So, it's definitely, I can definitely see in situations where a men-on-men scene, while desired within the community, won't make as much money, and therefore the studios aren't going to spend as much making sure their performers are safe, which is really tragic. But whatever her motivations were, the fact is that the negative pushback from her, publicly decrying her views is what is considered to have made her eventually decide to end it all, and that's really tragic. Personally, I don't think Brazzers will ever release this. I feel like it will be kind of in bad taste. To release it in any form would almost be like saying, hey, want to see a guy stick his dick in a dead girl? Which, thank God I'm not monetized. But ultimately, again, there's so much adult content out there. Do you really... you'd have to be kind of morbid to be demanding, yes, I want August Ames's final scene. I demand to see her. The one small beam of light in a tragic story, apparently with her death and the death of other adult performers that same year, there have been a lot of initiatives since that have come about to deal with the mental fragility that can exist with these performers, including a hotline called the August Project. It feels right that this piece stay lost out of respect for the performer, because even though her job was, taking her clothes off and taking dick for money, I'm sorry that came out so crass, but that's how some people might see it. She was a human being. She expressed her opinion, and she received a lot of blowback and caused her to make a very sad choice. For anyone to be making efforts to find this just is ghoulish, in my opinion, and that's really all I have to say about it. And at number 5, we have Suzumi Fune, aka Cool Ship, which is a lost 1932 Japanese pornographic animated short. This short animated film, directed by Hakusan Kimura, is widely considered to be the first piece of pornographic animation ever produced in Japan. Now, Japan is no stranger to pornographic drawings. I mean, Hokusai, who is famous for his great wave off Kanagawa print, said to be the most reproduced image of art of all time, has another print that, while maybe not as famous, is certainly infamous, called The Dream of the Fisherman's Wife, which features a Japanese woman having some fun times with a couple of octopus. And that was made all the way back in 1814. So you might think that all would be well and good for Japan to make a pornographic cartoon if, they've been such down bad pervs for animated smut for over a century. Well, censorship standards in Japan have fluctuated greatly over the centuries, and unfortunately, at the time of this production, it was in their more conservative era. And before this film could be completed, it was seized by the police and has never been released. Now, something that's interesting about this unreleased film is that at some point in the early 2000s, the Tokyo police donated remnants of the film to the National Film Center, and it is said that the print is 10 minutes long. So, brief update, I was able to find a little bit more about this by going to the Japanese Wikipedia page and translating it over to English. Sometimes some of these foreign things I do run into troubles finding information because I do not read Japanese at all, but I was able to find this, so let me expand on this a little. Supposedly the plot of this is more or less about a young woman who is lured by another man who attempts to commit a sex act on her, but she is saved when the man is spotted by a boatman and falls into the river, and then the boatman goes on to apparently have sex with the woman. Again, that was from a crude trying to piece together a not great translation, translating the Japanese Wikipedia entry into English, but that's what I took from it. And while the Lost Media Wiki states that definitively the police are the ones who donated a copy of the film, that is speculated, not known. It was secretly donated, there was no official announcement of the rediscovery, and the collection status of the work was registered in the Japanese Media Art Database, and the existence was made known to the public for the first time at that point. But ultimately, this film, nobody knew where it was at all for almost 85 years. And when asked if there would be able to be a screening of the work, the museum's response was that it could not be released due to the arrangement with the donor. There have been requests for the museum to talk to the donor, whoever it may be, about making it available to researchers, but as of right now, this remains locked away, sealed, and, nobody can actually watch this. Again, I mean, on its face value, it's just an old cartoon porno movie. It's probably not great quality considering when it was made, but it is interesting in how big the quote-unquote cartoon porn industry in Japan has become, and this is said to be, the very origin of animated smut in Japan. So I definitely think it does have, at least from a historical aspect, some culturally significant value, as opposed to other just, oh hey, like we talked in one of the early episodes about La Blue Girl, and it's like, alright, it's an old cartoon porno movie. I mean, do you really care if you can find it in its entirety? Go watch something more recent if that's your thing. It feels weird to utter the phrase historically significant pornography, but there you have it. Fake Doomsday, which is a lost Filipino doomsday PSA circa 1992. Fake Doomsday, also known as Hoax Doomsday, are the names given to a certain lost Filipino PSA about the biblical end times prophecy, specifically mentioning the number of the beast. It is unknown who created the PSA or their motives, though given the nature of the ad, it is thought that it is likely a fundamentalist Christian group. Supposedly the ad started with the word rapture, with a date on the bottom of the screen and a picture of Jesus resurrecting in the background. This is followed by a slide of disturbing pictures from the Holocaust, with eyewitnesses describing the people in the pictures as bald, pale, skinny, and some of them being dragged by their necks. Then the number 666 with a black font and an off-white background follows, followed by photos of people with the number 666 on their forehead in the middle to the end part of the PSA. It's said that the ad ends with a picture of Jesus Christ floating, resurrecting in Galilee, and the PSA has ominous background music and a voiceover with, "This is a paid advertisement," shown on the bottom part of the screen throughout it. Now, the commercial exclusively aired on IBC-13 during top 10 movie trailers of the week in early 1990s, presumably 1991 to 1992, along with PSO Sinosila commercial, which is in and of itself a lost Filipino commercial for a government owned and controlled corporation of the Philippines that is mandated to do fundraising and provide funds for health programs. Now, it's not fully known what the purpose of this PSA was, with some speculating that it could be a fake ad made by people just to shock unwitting viewers. Others speculate that it came from a fundamentalist Christian organization who sincerely believed in millennialism, which is based on an ancient Zoroastrian concept that each 1,000 years, the Earth ends and is reborn. But yeah, so apparently somebody just made a super creepy doomsday ad specifically for the Philippines, and it played very briefly, and there's apparently only all that's left of it are people's memories of it. Now, I guarantee you somewhere there is somebody in the Philippines who had a VCR who just happened to have taped this, and that they have a copy of this without even knowing that what they have might actually contain 2 pieces of lost media. So, you know, that's why I'm making this kind of this lesser known series, because the more we get out these lesser pieces of lost media to and make public awareness of them, the higher a chance we have that somebody's going to go, "Oh shit, I have that. People are looking for that." And, that's why it's important to make stuff like this, instead of just talking about, the popular pieces like a lot of YouTubers do. So this volume's piece of not safe for work lost media is The Hungry Duck, lost footage of strip performances from Russian bars circa 1999 to 2013. The Hungry Duck was an infamous club in Moscow, Russia that existed from 1999 through 2013. It was known for the unique strip performances where the performers would strip audience members nude on stage. Now, despite this, there were still rules that had to be followed. 1. Only volunteers were allowed to be stripped nude on stage. 2. If an audience member clearly does not wish to be disrobed anymore and isn't just naturally nervous, the member is dismissed and another is invited on stage. And 3. The genitals of the performer and the audience member were not allowed to touch physically. Alright, seems pretty straightforward. Now, this was very controversial. These rules helped negate many of the controversies and negative press surrounding the club. Rarely did an audience member find that things were taken too far, and even when it was in the case, many instances were thankfully settled with an apology and without action from the law. Despite the rules, however, many accounts claimed that the audience members were trying to push the limits. Some members tried to push performers into have full-out sex with them on stage. Some of the accounts also say that some of the performers went along with it. However, all actual evidence has yet to be found. So the Duck took many publicity videos, and other amateur videos also exist. These publicity videos are easily available online. However, many of the more wild amateur ones have notably disappeared. Viewers often recall seeing videos of performers breaking the rules and getting full-out sex acts involved on stage. There are also apparently a few publicity videos involving female performers stripping down male performers that have been removed allegedly because they were taken too far. An unknown compilation video of all the surviving performances also floats around the internet at 87 minutes long. The rest have yet to surface. However, many of both amateur and publicity videos have been found on various porn sites. So this one, I just kind of think it's kind of neat because, it's definitely a unique concept for a strip club. And while I'm sure if we found all the videos, the quality would be debatable at best, Until such a time that all the videos are found, people are going to speculate at just how out of hand or breaking the rules things got because of just kind of the infamy, and this story seems like it's kind of just grown into this legend where, you know, I'm sure people have told stories of the Hungry Duck where, you know, a full-out orgy broke out on stage, or, you know, I mean, anything. I'm sure the tale, people told stories about this place, and the tale got even bigger each time it was told. It's one of those things that the reality will probably not live up to the legend, but again, as long as the legend exists, the search for the actual content will continue. Alright guys, at our final piece, number 5, we have Angel Blade and Angel Blade Punish, Lost Deleted Scenes of Anime Series, Existence Unconfirmed, circa 2003 to 2005. Angel Blades is a hentai pornographic anime OVA series that ran from 2001 to 2003, and Angel Blade Punish is its sequel series, which ran from 2004 to 2005. It is a parody of magical girl anime, so, you know, porn parodies before porn parodies became normal and just kind of took off. Now, as for the lost piece of media, promotional artwork exists for the third and final episodes of both series that appear to be screen caps of cell animation, but these scenes in question were not present for their respective episodes. It is suspected by some fans that these scenes were never animated at all, and are simply still drawings meant solely to promote the anime. Now, I know I criticize a lot the idea that there are people out there that are desperate to find what is just essentially dated, you know, probably a product of its time cartoon porn, but, you know, I definitely, on the other hand, I get it. You know, the whole point of this series is all about lesser known but interesting lost media. There is so much lost media out there. Some of it we've probably never heard of, never will hear of. But the idea is, why is something worth looking for? Like, what made people look at these stills, which I can't show you, that you can find them on the Lost Media Wiki, but I can't show them here for obvious reasons. What made people look at these, you know, images of cartoon porn and go, I need to know if there is a bigger, more complete version of these cartoons out there? And ultimately, the answer to that question is very simple, is that if you're a fan of something, you're never going to consider that you have enough content. As long as you're a fan, you're going to want more content. If content becomes oversaturated, you might stop being a fan. But as long as you are a fan, you're never going to be like, okay, we've had enough. This is enough Star Wars movies. This is enough Grand Theft Auto games. This is enough cartoon pornography. No, if you like it, you're gonna want more of it. And because there's a hint that there could be more out there, these fans are gonna want to find it. And, you know, I respect them for that. As to whether or not there are, you know, cut animated scenes of this, I don't know. But I know that, much like our previous videos, Lost Strip Club footage, as long as it hasn't been determined one way or another, there are going to be people looking for it, and they're not going to be happy until they find it. And to those I say, happy hunting. I salute you. And our final piece today is Cleopatra, Queen of Sex, partially found English sub and dub of Osamu Tezuka erotic anime film, early 1970s. Cleopatra is a 1970 Japanese anime erotic science fiction thriller film directed by the godfather of anime himself, Osamu Tezuka, known for creating Astro Boy and Kimba the White Lion. Little is known about the film's plot to non-Japanese audiences, but according to its IMDb page, it is a semi-pornographic science fiction film where three people from the future are spiritually sent back in time to relive the era of Caesar, Mark Antony, and Cleopatra. where they are most likely to stop a plan in the past made by an enemy in their time that seeks to cause damage in the present. The film had several sex scenes, nudity, and extreme violence are fairly common. Rare at the time in Japan, back when hentai and animated gore were still unpopular, although it is not considered to be a hentai film. I will state that I can confirm this. I looked the film up, I found like an unofficial fan subtitled version, and I mean there's one character, I mean I kind of just skimmed through it, it's definitely has a dated look to it. There is one character who is literally topless in apparently every scene she is in, but it is not what I would consider hentai by at least by today's standards. It's there is violence, there is nudity, but I mean I did not see any overtly pornographic, there's no it's not as explicit. They're not actually showing acts of penetration. It's more akin to just being a sex scene in a live action, a non-pornographic movie than it would be this is a piece of porn. But it is a little weird to see these elements in a cartoon style that is from an era where we really just don't think those kind of films really were around. As for the English translation, when it arrived for a very short period in the US on April 24th of 1972, it received the title of Cleopatra, Queen of Sex, with a self-applied X rating not submitted to the MPAA. Now, please understand that this does not mean it was rated XXX, which is something that the porn industry later kind of gave themselves as ooh, we're better than, we're more hardcore than X. The X rating is just something given to any film that has not submitted itself to the ratings board. Now, they can give the rating of X, or you can just be look, I'm just going to give myself the X rating, which means it won't be shown in most theaters, but it's I'm not going to take the time and pay the money to have this, submitted to the ratings board, which, a Disney movie that doesn't want to submit itself would be given an X rating. Let's say Mary Poppins didn't want to submit itself to the ratings board in this day and age. It would be given an X rating, even though it's Mary freaking Poppins, y'all. But, so it's again, it's not saying that this is an overtly pornographic film, just that they didn't see the need to, give themselves over to the ratings board for their judgment. Because even though it is kind of tame by today's standards, a gory, nudity-filled cartoon would definitely have gotten an X rating anyway. The subtitled versions that were released to English-speaking countries are said to be lost and have not been found. However, the Japanese version can still be found on YouTube, awaiting to be subbed most likely by fans. Again, this is the version I found. It is doubtful if it was ever dubbed. However, some references to a dub can be found, but are most likely unconfirmed to be real, or the dub was cancelled due to the film being very unpopular. The non-subbed Japanese version is available to be seen on YouTube and most other websites. As years pass by, they were slowly taken down, and once again put back up or re-uploaded. It is unknown if the reasons behind the removals are some kind of copyright issues or due to the pornographic/nudity sequences, which are against YouTube's terms of use, which is I've been very careful to not have those scenes playing during this segment. However, on June 18th, 2018, a DVD was released featuring Cleopatra, Queen of Sex. The film has not yet been uploaded anywhere, but a trailer from the people releasing the DVD has been uploaded. In 2020, Discotek Media announced a Blu-ray release of the film with English subtitles. So we have since gotten some subtitled versions officially of this movie, but the dub still remains lost if it even existed at all. Now you might be thinking I'm about to go into my normal spiel of it's an old nudie cartoon, who cares, but no, that's not what I'm gonna do. Now, unlike Angel Blade from the last video where I said, hey, this is a series people love and they're always gonna want more content, this I actually think does have some significance in the grand scheme of the history of animation. This movie was made at a time where adult animated films outside of short porno cartoons in Europe were unheard of. This was the same era where Fritz the Cat was released in America, and it also was oh my god, this is a cartoon with nudity and sexual themes. Where are the happy dancing animals? Well, those technically were in Fritz the Cat, but they were happy in a different way. And to me, this feels like this was Tezuka, pushing the boundaries of what animation could be. It didn't just have to be kids' Saturday morning cartoons. It could be made for adults with adult themes, with non-kid friendly content, because Anybody can enjoy cartoons. Cartoons and animation can be used as a medium to tell any story, whether that's a wholesome, family-friendly story or an erotic tale about time travel. And honestly, we may never know if an English dub of this movie exists. I mean, dubs were not always common at the time. Also, they were often poorly done. I mean, there's plenty of jokes about, like, Speed Racer that make this well known. And dubs really didn't start getting professional, time-honored, considerate treatment until, like, Akira in the 1980s. So yes, while if there is a dub, it is probably bad, it would be interesting to see and hear how an adult-oriented dub of a Japanese cartoon was handled way back in the day. Because whether you are a fan of this kind of content or not, it is always interesting to see how different aspects of a medium and a type of media were treated in their infancy, in their early stages. Now there's, nudity and gore and, adult themes in all kinds of anime and cartoons is commonplace, and not just, hentai or pornography, the ecchi series, the fan service series. Like, it's pretty par for the course and standard. So to see how that kind of content was handled in the early days, especially when it's brought over to America, who were even less accustomed to this kind of thing than the Japanese audience was, would be very interesting. So this might not exist, but if it does, I hope we find it someday. So our final one is a treat. It is not only not safe for work, but it is considered not safe for work and not safe for life on the Lost Media Wiki for its talk about excessive gore, violence, and sexual content. We are talking about the original cut of Hellraiser, the 1987 body horror film. Hellraiser was written and directed by writer Clive Barker based on his 1986 novella, The Hellbound Heart. The basic plot of this movie is that a woman named Julia is trying to resurrect her dead lover Frank by luring men to her house, seducing them, killing them, and then feeding their skin to Frank's partially reanimated corpse. Frank is in this state, having escaped from the demonic Cenobites. Meanwhile, Julia's stepdaughter Christy is trying to prevent Frank from resurrecting, as well as trying to steer clear of the demonic Cenobites who have come to this world trying to get Frank back after he escaped from their clutches. This movie has a very strong theme of that there is a link between pain and pleasure, and it views things like torture and sadomasochism as essentially erotic in nature. So it was a very controversial film even after it was edited, but it is critically acclaimed. People love it. It has spawned a huge series of far less successful films. But there were definitely a lot of cuts, because as much of a trip as this film is, it was supposed to be even more brutal. A lot of the cuts were, cutting down on the gore and the violence. Some of the murder scenes were shortened or cut altogether. There was one of the most infamous scenes being Frank being ripped apart by chains by the Cenobites is definitely a really, really gruesome scene that was apparently longer in the original cut. One of the weirder cuts is that there was a sex scene between flashback sex scene between Frank and Julia that was cut because apparently there were too many thrusts to simulate butt sex, so anal. Basically, the MPAA told Clive Barker that the first two thrusts were perfectly fine, but the third one was where it got obscene. So apparently, having some stamina during your butt stuff is just right out, but letting a man get ripped apart by chains, perfectly wholesome family fun. Beyond the sex scene, Barker has stated that for most of these cuts, he actually agrees they make the film better, so it is unlikely that we will see the original cut anytime in the near future, though apparently as far as the availability of the deleted scenes, there is apparently a German cut release of the movie that has the extended chain ripping scene, because they took footage from a flashback that had more of the scene from Hellraiser 2 and used that to fill in the gaps. Personally, I think the film is plenty gruesome just the way it is. It is a classic, but again, if you're a fan of Hellraiser, I'm sure you'd enjoy being able to see some other scenes, or if you're a fan of butt stuff in your horror movies. We have the Daniel P. Dukes lost death photographs and possible footage of Orca attack circa 1999. So Daniel P. Dukes was the second person to be killed by Tilikum, the largest orca held in captivity, on July 6th of 1999. Now, you are probably aware of the other piece of Lost Media featuring Tilikum killing another individual. This would have been his most recent kill and final kill before his death in 2007, which was when he killed his trainer, Don Branshaw, in 2010 during a performance. That piece of Lost Media is well known, so it won't be covered on this channel, but what we're talking about is another one of his captivity kills that was likely caught on camera. So, on July 6th of 1999, Daniel P. Duke somehow bypassed security and snuck into SeaWorld Orlando. It is uncertain what his exact time of death was, but for some reason this guy decided to go skinny dipping in Tilikum's sleep tank. Tilikum then reportedly thrashed Duke's body around the tank and eventually killed him. The whale continued to play around with his body until the following morning when he was found parading Dukes' lifeless body on his back. You might not know this about orcas, but they like to kill things for fun and then kind of like play and toy with them. Orcas are dicks. Also, the whale had reportedly bitten off Dukes' genitals. Well, what was this guy doing naked in a killer whale sleep tank that made this whale decide to bite off his genitals?
Dad, what's the blowhole for? I'll tell you what it's not for, son. And when I do, you'll understand why I can never go back to SeaWorld.
Also, he had so many injuries that the autopsies were dumbfounded as to what the actual cause of death was, though we'll just say he was killed by a motherfucking orca. And his face was in such bad condition that his funeral had to be held closed casket. I'm sorry if I chuckled a bit during that. You know, this is the death of a real live human being, but Jesus Christ, why did you took the time to sneak into a theme park so you could skinny dip with a killer whale and piss this thing off to the point where it decided to rip off your genitals. Something's not right about what you were doing. Now, it is possible that Dukes' death may have been captured on security camera footage. However, SeaWorld has declined to confirm this. There are confirmed pictures of his body being carried around by the whale, taken by park employees for reference. However, these photographs, and the surveillance footage, if it exists, has yet to surface, as they are more than likely being held by the FBI, never to be given out for an official release. But yeah, just a brief rundown. In 1991, Tilikum had killed a trainer named Kelty Byrne, and then he had also killed Mr. Dukes, and then he killed Don Branshaw in 2010. And he had continued to be seen at SeaWorld and was still being used in shows until his death in early 2017, and there is a documentary film called Blackfish that details his story and can be viewed on Netflix. But Jesus Christ, how many people does this whale have to kill, including 2 of his trainers, before they stop putting people in the tank with him? Well, apparently the world will never know because he died before they could reach that number. Again, if the security footage exists, I mean, more than just, I don't really want to see a man die, but I do want confirmation on my theory that he was up to something, and that's why the whale did what it did to him. At number 5, we have Angelo Orsi's photos of Ayrton Senna, lost photos of Formula One driver post-crash in 1994. On May 1st of 1994, Formula One driver Ayrton Senna crashed into an unprotected concrete barrier at the Tubarello corner at the Autodromo Enzo de Dino Ferrari during the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix. The impact resulted in Senna's death in hospital a few hours later. Post-crash, photographer Angelo Orsi appeared on the scene and took photos of Senna in the car and after his helmet was taken off. These photos have never been released to the public. So the corner that he hit, he crashed into the concrete barrier at 130 miles per hour, suffering a multitude of injuries. The front wheel entered the cockpit and struck the right frontal area of his helmet, the impact of which caused his head to be forced back onto the headrest, causing skull fractures. A piece of the wheel's suspension also detached and penetrated the helmet, causing fatal head trauma. Just one of these injuries alone would have been enough to kill him. As Senna laid motionless in his car, Angelo Orsi, the only known cameraman already situated at this particular part of the race when the accident occurred, leaped over the wall opposite the corner and arrived to the scene of the crash. He was the picture editor of the Italian racing magazine Autosprint and a close friend of Senna. According to The Life of Senna, a book, Orsi took close-up photos of Senna while he was motionless in the destroyed car. Photos were also taken of Senna after his helmet was removed, and when he was being treated by medical personnel on the ground. The photos were extremely graphic in nature when considered that Senna lost 4.5 liters of blood following him suffering a burst temporal artery, which caused blood to soak from the car and onto the track. At 6:40 p.m., Senna was officially declared dead. Around midnight, Orsi returned to Autosprint's developing room to analyze the photos, where he was confident the photos were unlikely to be published in any magazine. Brazilian commentator for the Grand Prix, Galvão Bueno, who was also a close personal friend of Senna, had watched Orsi take the photos live on air. He claimed that Orsi aimed and shot without even seeing exactly what he was getting. He was also the one to inform the Senna family of the photos' existence. Family members, as well as Senna's girlfriend, Adrian Kelman Galitztu, I'm sure I got that one wrong, are known to have been the only people to have seen the pictures. Consequently, representatives of the Senna family immediately requested Orsi never allow anyone else to view the photos, with Orsi respecting their wishes to this day. Now, while graphic photos of this accident are publicly available to view, Orsi's collection have remained withheld from the public as of the present day. According to The Life of Senna, they are likely within a safe within Autosprint's office. Orsi and Autosprint are known to have been offered large financial offers, at least more than $100,000, for the rights of the photos. Bueno, who greatly respected Orsi for his decision not to release the photos, stated that some agencies were among those who offered money for the photos, but ultimately all of these offers were rejected by Orsi with the support of Autosprint's higher-ups. Thus the photos are unlikely to ever see the light of day. According to another source, at least one photo is known to be permanently irrecoverable, depicting Senna without his helmet. It is known that Autosprint director Carlo Cavici received a call from Orsi requesting its destruction. Cavici respected the decision, and thus the photograph is no longer known to exist. Whether the other photos ultimately suffered the same fate is unknown. Now, I'm sure there are people out there that would criticize this photographer from, leaping over a wall to take photos of this crash, especially if the guy was his friend, but I'll be honest, if I was a photographer and I was watching my friend race, and I saw him crash right in front of me, well, first, my instinct would be to leap the fence to go help him, but I'm a photographer. I'm not a medical practitioner. I wouldn't know what to do. I think I would kind of go into shock and just go on autopilot and do the only thing I knew how to. I mean, that's pretty much kind of what the commentator said it looked like he was doing. He wasn't even really aiming up the shots. He was just taking photos. And ultimately, I do respect him. I don't blame him for taking the photos. Whatever his reasoning was, I mean, that was ultimately what he was there to do. But I definitely commend him for respecting the family's wishes to never release them. I personally think that even had they not given him that request, he probably would have made that decision himself, because he was this man's friend. And the photos were the result, in my opinion, of him reacting to seeing this horrible thing happen to someone he cared about. What else do you do as a photographer, as a journalist, but, take pictures or report? I don't know, guys. Racing seems absolutely terrifying to me. I don't even like speeding. I can't imagine driving as fast as these guys do in these races. For our final piece of Lost Media, we have Act Age, partially lost production material of a cancelled weekly Shonen Jump manga and other projects, circa 2018 to 2020. Act Age was a series published by Weekly Shonen Jump from January 2018 to August of 2020 and was written by Tatsuya Matsuki and illustrated by Shiro Usazaki. The series is set in modern-day Tokyo and follows Kai Yonagi, a girl who is so talented at method acting, she starts to lose the ability to tell reality from the character she becomes. This psychological thriller became hugely successful, selling over 3 million copies over the course of 12 volumes. The series was published by Viz Media in America starting in December of 2018. It was also critically acclaimed, being nominated for Best Manga at the 43rd Annual Kodansha Manga Awards. So you might be asking yourself, what about this one makes it the not safe for work entry? Well, it was cancelled in August of 2020 because the author, Tatsuya Matsuki, was arrested for inappropriately touching 2 female middle school students. Due to this crime, the series was immediately cancelled in the middle of a story arc, leaving all work on the future of the series on the cutting room floor. In a later interview, it was confirmed that Shiro Usazaki was given the opportunity to continue Act Age and find a new writing partner, but she ultimately decided to cancel the series as she felt it would be hurtful to the victims of the crime to see a work created by their assailant still being published. So any chapters already finished or in the drafting stages are either in the corporate headquarters in the archives, or with Usazaki or Matsuki, or they could have been thrown out completely, leaving all unreleased material lost. After Matsuki was arrested, Viz Media deleted all chapters from their website, although they have been re-uploaded and can still be found on various sites. Any plan to release the chapters in volume format were cancelled in both English and in Japanese, and the English release of the series ended at volume 3, leaving 102 chapters to go unreleased in that format. In Japan, 16 chapters were never released in this format. Because this series is not officially in print anymore, this series both in English and Japanese are at risk of being completely lost. A light novel version and a live stage play version of Act Age were also planned and in development, though how far they both were in development is unconfirmed. And so honestly, apparently this was a pretty good story, but was, being created by a terrible human being, and as such, I don't know. It all comes down to the idea of, can you separate an artist from their art? Or if they are bad, should we also not partake of what they create? This has been a very seriously talked about topic quite a bit, especially since the Me Too movement that gained traction in around 2020, maybe 2019. I don't remember the exact year. And honestly, I don't know if there is a definitive answer. Personally, knowing the background of one of the people who created this, even if it was still available, I would not have any desire to read it, but I know that is not always the opinion that everyone will have. Great example, before it came out that he was a complete piece of crap, I was a big Kevin Spacey fan. I loved the movie Beyond the Sea, and specifically how he sang the various Bobby Darin songs, and since finding out what a piece of garbage he is for what he did, very similar to, for reasons similar to the same thing this mangaka writer got canceled for, I can't listen to my Beyond the Sea soundtrack anymore. It's just knowing who is singing and what he did ruined it for me. So personally, I'm fine with letting this one be lost forever, but I'm sure there are people who would disagree with me. And that's okay too. Again, I don't think there is one right answer or any definitive answer in the argument of, can we separate an artist from their art? It's a pretty deep question. And at number 5, we have Shop Erotic, a partially found adult toy program circa 2006 to 2010. Shop Erotic was a late-night adult toy home shopping show that aired on Oxygen from 2006 to 2010. The show would air its episodes on a weekly basis from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m. and would mostly feature 2 hosts that were formerly from Playboy TV, Miyoko Fujimori Rifkin and Andrea Lowe, throughout the rest of 2007 to 2010. It was officially launched on January 29th of 2006, and the heart-shaped logo and the name Shop Erotic were both trademarked. The same month, a website for the program was also launched. Former Playboy TV host Miyoko Fujimori-Rifkin and radio host Tiffany Garnath were the first to be hired for the show, though Tiffany would later be replaced by fellow Playboy TV alumni to Miyoko, Andrea Lowell. The episodes that aired were an hour long, and they aired on their old Shop Erotic website in the live TV section. The show would document and promote some of the adult toy products that were featured on Shop Erotic's website, as an alternative to the Adam and Eve adult toy website. Well, one of those is still around, right? According to the owner of iTelevision, Mitchell Cohen, the show Shop Erotic aired to over 65 million viewers via Dish Network and DirecTV. Now, unfortunately, we really don't have any old episodes of this available, though there are some footage, apparently, of when the phone number for the show would be constantly prank called by viewers. Now, some people have uploaded high-quality stills, though not many and no full episodes. Also, the website had a collection of clips from episodes from previous years, but unfortunately, they were not archived or an MOV file, so they are unavailable at the time. There have been a few clips that have been found, but mostly this show is unavailable. Also, unfortunately, and this may have led to why clips of the show are not readily available, apparently from 2008 until May of 2010, they were involved in a lawsuit that was regarding an unknown complaint that could have been related in regards to the content that they were airing. Later that year, Miyoko would stop hosting the show, and it would get rebranded with a new logo and continue the program with Andrea and a new main host before being canceled sometime in 2013. 3 years later, they would host a temporary show that was known as Play With Me TV, which only had 3 videos on Miyoko's YouTube channel. So, I don't know. There could definitely be something involved with that lawsuit that meant that they weren't really able to archive this show very well, but at the end of the day, it was just an early, a mid-early 2000s sex toy QVC. How entertaining could it honestly be? I'm sure there's people that would love to find this one, but ultimately it does not hold my interest much. I just think it's kind of funny what used to be on like Dish Network, DirecTV back in like the Wild West of digital cable eras. If you're looking for fun, erotically themed content, you know what? I think my minis are a much better investment of your time and money. Now, slight content trigger warning for this last one. It does mention the possibility of alleged sex trafficking. So if that is it also involves missing people. So if that triggers you, you may want to just, type "Clert is the goat" and leave this video and be on your merry way. But with that being said, let's get into this. Our final piece of not safe for work lost media involves Amy Lynn Bradley and the lost photos of her from the Rhapsody of the Seas cruise, where she went missing back in 1998. Now, if you are at all a fan of true crime, you have probably heard the story of Amy Lynn Bradley, who is an American woman who went missing in 1998 during a family trip on the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas. It has sparked several large-scale investigations, with many theories about the disappearances following in the years since. One common theory is that Bradley was kidnapped and sold into sex trafficking. One significant element to this theory is that the cruise pictures of Bradley went missing the night before she disappeared and remain unaccounted for to this day, as other passengers who had their photos taken had theirs accounted for. Those who believe Bradley was trafficked claimed that these pictures were taken for use by her traffickers. Now, I'm not going to go into the details surrounding her disappearance, as you can watch any number of other YouTubers who can do a much better job on that than I could. But as for where these missing photos come into play, on cruise ships, it's a common feature that passengers will have their pictures taken in order to be sold later. Amy and her family were no exception to this, having their pictures taken individually by a professional photographer following their return from the Caribbean island of Aruba. However, the night before she disappeared, Amy's pictures were missing from the picture display, and their whereabouts remain unknown to this day. with the photographer in question having no recollection of what happened to them after printing them off. This in turn has led to accusations that not only was Amy trafficked, but that the crew were in on it as well. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence that might suggest this. But since her disappearance in 1998, the pictures have yet to resurface, and will likely never do so, this being due to the photographer not knowing where the images are, and if the sex trafficking theory is true, that they are currently in the possession and being handled by criminal trafficking gangs. Amy was legally declared dead on March 24th of 2010, 12 years to the day that she went missing, and the case is currently cold. If you have any information about Amy Lynn Bradley, please visit tips.fbi.gov to submit an anonymous tip. I just think that it's really interesting and way too much of a coincidence that the one woman on this entire cruise that would go missing would also have her photos go missing the day before she disappeared. That can't be a coincidence. At number 5, we have Leslie Van Houten's sexual letter correspondence. Lost letter communication between Manson family member and an unknown double murderer pre-2016. Leslie Van Houten is a convicted murderer most famous for being a member of the Manson family. On the 10th of August 1969, she participated in the murders of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca, which resulted in her and several other family members being convicted and sentenced to death on the 29th of March of 1971, which was later reduced to a life sentence. Van Houten was incarcerated at the California Institute of Women for 53 years, with over 20 attempts for parole being denied over the years. During her time incarcerated, Van Houten was known to have been in a 15-year sexual letter relationship with an unknown double murderer. So basically, she was part of the cult run by super creepoid Charles Manson, and he was the one who commanded his followers to commit the murders of Sharon Tate and then later the LaBiancas. And Leslie Van Houten was one of the people involved and convicted of those crimes. Originally, she was sentenced to death, and then that was commuted to life without parole when California abolished the death penalty. She was retried and was then given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 7 years after the retrial. Now, during her incarceration, Van Houten was repeatedly recommended for parole, but her requests were repeatedly denied or overruled by the governor of California until her release in 2023, this year. In April of 2016, the California Parole Board recommended Van Houten's parole request be granted, but during the parole hearing, Sharon Tate's sister, Deborah, stated she believed Van Houten had not reformed since her time in the Manson family and still had a proclivity for evil men. She used Van Houten's prison records to claim that the murderer was allowed to have a 15-year sexual letter relationship with another double homicide individual in another state. The identity of this double murderer is unknown, but it is also unknown if this information was what caused the governor at the time, Jerry Brown, to deny the parole request, with Judge William Ryan upholding this ruling in October of 2016, with both of these men deeming Van Houten was still a threat to society. Now, as to the availability of these supposed letters, the letters the unidentified double murderer sent to Van Houten most likely remain in her possession, and again, she is now a free woman. Now, because of their personal nature, it is unlikely that Van Houten will ever publicly release them, and meanwhile, the location and fate of the letters Van Houten wrote to the unidentified individual remains unknown. All that we supposedly do know is that the letters were sexual in nature, and that the double murderer had apparently died sometime prior to the 2016 parole hearing. While I do think that at some point, either one, if Van Houten needs money and therefore will possibly sell her letters, I don't think we'll ever find the letters she sent, as they've probably been discarded whenever this convicted double murderer, died. I just find this one interesting because not only was apparently Ms. Van Houten the object of a hybreustophiliac, that being someone who is attracted to serial killers. Again, I'm not really going into any of the details of her case. Many YouTubers have already done that far better than I could ever do, but it seems she herself, not only being a murderer, also was potentially a hebrustophiliac. I don't know if the murderer she was supposedly talking to counts, as it was only 2. I do believe you need 3 to be a serial killer, but I do think it is interesting that 2 evil people such as this could be attracted to one another, and it worries me what kind of, if evil finds evil, what that could release. And again, she's out amongst the public now. She's not even that old. She's like 74, so certainly not some kindly old lady. Personally, in my opinion, allegedly don't think she's probably all that reformed. I certainly wouldn't want to be alone in a room with her. At number 5, we have Otto Trin, a partially found Estonian children's TV series circa 1993 to 1998. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I was watching another YouTuber's Lost Media content, and this was where I heard about this one. I do watch a lot of Lost Media. It's what inspired me to make this series. But the way he was talking about this show and the build-up and even the entry itself on his video made this thing sound more like it was an urban legend or a creepypasta than an actual piece of Lost Media, and I thought it was going to be some kind of like gotcha moment, and it's like, no, this never existed. But no, it did, and this is real, so let's get into it. Just letting you know, the trigger warning, this is considered NSFL due to its mentions of vehicular manslaughter, possession of underage pornography, and the abuse of minors. So Otto Trin is a character created for Estonian TV station EVTV/RTV, later known as TV3, by Vino Lusar and Hendrik Masek, with Lusar being the one who mostly wears and is behind the Otto Trin mascot. A woolly dinosaur from Misomasa land, Otto Trin quickly became one of the most recognizable children's characters in Estonia during the 1990s. Now, I don't know much about the nation of Estonia, but this looks like this looks like the Barney that your mom hires when she can't afford Barney. This guy looks like a cheap Barney knockoff, but apparently was quite popular in Estonia, which again, I don't know what that says about Estonia. I know nothing about that country, no shade. Otto Trin would appear at live events where he would hand out candy and hold contests. The mascot itself also appeared on many dairy products, produced 2 cassettes, and had its own brand of chocolate, and a bedtime radio show where he thinly veiled himself as Mr. Mrs. Secret. His 3rd birthday party at the Club Hollywood in Tallinn alone attracted more than 1,600 children, and in 1995, Lusar even took the character to the United States. I don't remember this, but I was also in like 2nd grade then. Despite his massive success, the original TV show in which he first appeared remains completely lost, aside from a few resurfaced footages, probably due to the fact that TV3 is a private, non-national channel with no archive to preserve its content. It's especially strange considering not only Otto Trin's popularity, but also that the series ran for 5 years, from 1993 to 1998. There are no known VHS releases of this show. So why is this kid show in the final slot of this video? Well, we kind of mentioned that earlier, but let's get into the specific reasons. So, the notorious events surrounding the production of the series may have also led to it being hidden away for years. After originally airing, 33-year-old producer Tonu Pavo was involved in a car accident in 1997, fatally killing 2 people, a 37-year-old mother and her 5-year-old daughter, with Pavo's family injured from the accident. His notorious public trial began in 1998 and may have been the catalyst on why the show was quietly discontinued, as it had caused a number of controversies and scandals around the producer. In addition, it was apparent and frequently gossiped about that the channel that the show aired on, TV3, erased the show's existence from their catalog because of the controversies the show was facing. And there were also the questionable actions of Vino Lusar. So, When he started after Otto Trin, Lasar started a new child-oriented mascot show called Jolly Sajape, translation, Again This Jape, where he plays the sidekick of the titular mascot of the series called Chick. Unlike Otto Trin, however, episodes of this show can be found and are available online. Lasar, after starring in multiple shows since Jolly Sajape, has cemented himself as a prominent figure as a child performer and entertainer in Estonia. But on December 20th of 2019, he found himself yet again at the forefront of controversy as the Estonian Northern District Attorney's Office accused Lasar of sexually abusing a 10-year-old girl. Not only that, but they had accused him of possession of child rhymes with schmornography. After an intensive search of Lasar's home and belongings by the Estonian police, they had found an illegally licensed gun and acquired an external hard drive from Lasar which contained 19 images and 4 videos of this questionable pornography dating back to May 6th of 2013 when the files were created. In the summer of 2021, Lasar stated the following: "For 26 years, I've been doing TV shows for kids, running kids' events and concerts, learning how to tune myself in with kids and doing it well. But I have no sexual interest in children, and my soul is pure." However, despite this statement, in December of that same year, he was found guilty and subsequently convicted in a 5-year sentence, 4 months in prison, and the rest of his sentence will be served on probation, so he is still currently on probation. As to the status of Otto Trin, it is unknown how many episodes were produced or exactly how the show was presented, but based on what little remains, it appears to have been a combination of human and / actor and costume shows similar to Sesame Street. Clips and episodes of the show were aired in 2016 when TV3 had celebrated their 20th anniversary, and it aired various old shows from the 90s, with Otto Trin being one of them. What appears to be a single, full-length, high-quality episode was uploaded to TV3's video portal in 2016 for the channel's 20th anniversary, but it does appear that this has been taken down. And as of November 2022, the only things remaining of the TV series are 2 receipts for the show from Pig Filet a la Otto Trin and Otto Trin Breakfast, and 2 short clips, one from a guessing game on the old TV3 shows for the channel's 20th anniversary, and another on TV3's 7th News from September 15th of 2016, which contains footage from the episode previously mentioned. So, it sounds like this was a very popular, much beloved show that, unfortunately, due to the bad actions of the people involved in making it, will likely never see the light of day again. While it could be possible that somebody recorded VHS tapes of it, nobody has really come forward, and this show may just be lost forever, which is always sad when something so popular simply vanishes without a trace. But in this case, there might be a good reason for that, especially when you factor in what might have been going on behind the scenes when this man of questionable morals, again, he was convicted, so I don't think I even have to say allegedly, was surrounded by so many children for so long. Alright guys, for our final entry in this video, we have Medical Island, a partially found English dub of a Korean comedy horror web cartoon circa 2006. Medical Island is a South Korean American online comedy horror animated series produced by Margaret Dean, Michael Polis, and Studio Animal. This show used primarily flash animation, but would also make use of CGI. All of its 18 episodes are shorts, and according to Studio Animal's websites, episodes 1 through 8 were released in 2003, episodes 9 through 18 were released in 2005. Episodes 1 through 8 and 18 don't have dialogue, while episodes 9 through 17 do. So, the premise of the show is that it is set in a prison-like island medical facility controlled by Dr. Franken. The facility captures people and modifies them with experiments that alter their bodies. The facility is staffed by a legion of cloned nurses, specialists, and zombies. Many patients try to escape the island and/or attack the staff of Medical Island.
It is unsuitable to minors due to its haunting scenes and depiction of gore and male genitalia. So, most times you don't even want to look at a dick, but when you're told you can't look at that dick with an English dub, suddenly that's lost media, and that's a dick you want to see and English words you want to hear, I suppose. So, Warner Bros. Online acquired the distribution rights to the show. In May of 2006, it was reported that they made a deal with 180 Solutions to release the show on the controversial adware website Zango.com. Viewers had to install Zango's ad software before they could view the show. By the end of July, Warner Bros. Pulled its content from Zango due to lack of a third-party certification on Zango's business practices that did not meet Warner Bros. Standards. By March of 2009, the show was viewable on Crackle.com. It was nominated for MIPCOM's 2006 Mobile TV Screenings and Awards for the Best Original Made-for-Mobile Film or Video Content category, and the complete series in its Korean dub was uploaded to YouTube by Studio Animal, and while it is still mentioned on Sony Crackle, none of the episodes can play anymore. The YouTube user Are You Taken Fool did upload the English dubs of episodes 9, 10, and 17, all of which have the Crackle watermark. Episode 16 is available on Metatube, and summaries of all episodes on Zango have been preserved on the Internet Archive. 2006 was a crazy time for the internet and video content. 2006 is actually when I graduated high school, got my first laptop, personal laptop, the first time I ever had unfettered access to the internet without my parents looking over my shoulder. Yes, I grew up in a kind of sheltered household, so to speak. But there are a ton of things here like this where companies were trying to figure out, okay, how do we use the internet to make money on videos? Little short videos, questionable quality. You also, how do we make money off of it? What are the guidelines? We're not getting the censorship like we do if we want to put something on TV. You couldn't have shown male genitals on Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, or even MTV, but hey, the internet, everything's fair game. So you had a lot of stuff like this, and unfortunately, because people didn't really quite know what they were doing, if it was going to be successful, or if anyone would care, almost 20 years from then, there were not as many efforts made to preserve all of it. A lot of early internet stuff, and we're talking even in the 90s to the early 2000s, has not been preserved nearly the way that it should, and that's why you're going to see a lot of instances of it on this show and on other Lost Media shows. And if you were fortunate enough to have grabbed these videos because you were a savvy little internet sleuth back in the day, great time to upload them. Let people know that these things are still out there. And again, that's why I like to showcase the lesser known stuff, because while everybody is still trying desperately to find Smash Fest, so they can watch people in Nintendo mascot suits wail on each other, we could probably be finding all kinds of stuff that people just didn't know anybody was looking for it. At number 5, we have the New York Centerfold Massacre, a partially lost horror film from 1985. The New York Centerfold Massacre is a film where pornographic centerfold models in New York are being slaughtered by an overprotective Christian mother with a potato sack over her head. Her methods contain chugging acid down their throats, knocking them out with a tripod, and shining lights at their faces. The police are investigating to find the one responsible for these grisly murders. This movie never saw a theatrical release, nor was it ever sold in stores. The only way to obtain a copy was through an exclusive mail ordering services ran by Macabre Video Underground. Due to errors both on set and in the final cut, large portions of the film were deleted, while the remainder were lost during a fire. About half of the footage of the New York Centerfold Massacre has never been released, as it was accidentally deleted from the final cut. In an interview with the director Lou Ferroli, in regards to deleted footage, he stated, "The best footage of NYCM was lost not in the fire, but on the set, as a crew member put in a recorded shoot tape as a blank, and so the best slasher scenes in a couple of great buxomy models were erased. and these models really were centerfolds. I couldn't afford to bring them back for another shooting day. All of the master copies of the New York Centerfold Massacre were destroyed when a warehouse that stored the master copies caught fire. As of now, new webcam footage was spliced in the first few minutes of the movie to try and recuperate some of what there was, but most of this film is just gone. Now, if you go to the Lost Media Wiki, you can actually see the footage that is available of this film, and it is bad. Like, I took a quick look. It's terrible. But, there definitely is a market for these things where, if something's so bad it's good, but this literally looks like someone was shooting a 1980s home movie rather than, I've seen low-budget films from the 60s that are better quality than this thing. And unfortunately, half of the footage that was lost, it was literally recorded over with no backups, and they couldn't reshoot it, so there's literally zero chance it will ever be found. But I really, just looking at this film, I think that should have been their cue. Just stop right there rather than keep making it. Alright guys, for this final piece, I kind of had to wrestle with whether or not I consider this a lesser known piece of lost media, as I have seen it on several videos. But I ultimately decided that it counts and belongs here because there are similar pieces of lost media that are much more well known. And that is, of course, the Renee Hartevelt death footage recorded by Issei Sagawa, aka the Japanese killer, who recorded his act of cannibalistic murder on this woman in 1981. In the summer of 1981, Issei Sagawa, a Japanese student studying abroad in France, invited Renee Hartevelt, a classmate, to his apartment for dinner and to study poetry. What culminated was Sagawa's intention to kill and consume Hartevelt's flesh. While he was reading a Johannes Roberts Becker poem about death, he shot her with a rifle. Using an electric knife, he started taking more than 7 kilos of meat off of her body. He consumed her flesh during the next 3 days, cooking several meals and having sex with her corpse before finally getting rid of the body. In addition, he recorded the entirety of the butchery. Her last words and the actual firing of the shot were also caught on tape. And Sagawa shot a total of 39 photographs showing several stagings he made with the corpse. Trying to make Hartevelt's body disappear, Sagawa eventually committed a mistake by losing one of his suitcases containing her body parts in a public garden. The police later found that the owner of the suitcase and arrested him, and he was known as the Japanese cannibal by the newspapers. The rest of Hartevelt's body, the rifle, and the butchery photos, as well as the tape recorder and several other pieces of evidence were found in his apartment. The saddest part is that rather than going to prison, he was sent to a mental institution, and then when he got out, he became a celebrity food critic in Japan. Now, these tapes are presumed to be in the possession of the French police. They are unlikely to ever surface for obvious reasons. Now, while I believe Mr. Sagawa died of COVID during the pandemic, I think it is insane. Be that, one, I can understand how he got off with a slap on the wrist because apparently his father is very rich and well connected and was able to get his son out of the trouble. But the thing that amazes me is that knowing what he did, this man was welcomed as a celebrity, and being known as a cannibal, why the hell would you want this man to be a food critic? I feel like giving this man celebrity status and having him write articles and make television appearances is incredibly disrespectful to the memory of Ms. Hartevelt, who the only thing she did wrong was befriend the wrong classmate who turned out to be a complete sicko and psychopath. And as it stands, I'm glad this man's dead. I wish that he had gone to prison, and I wish that he had met a similar fate to, say, our own American Milwaukee cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer, because I think it's absolutely disgusting that this man was, was only made to be in a psych ward and then welcomed back to his home country with open arms as a morbid curiosity celebrity figure. Absolutely disgraceful. At number 5, we have the lost Yellowstone National Park hot spring death footage of Colin Scott from 2016. Of course, you probably know Yellowstone National Park, home of the geyser Old Faithful, but there's also many, many hot springs in this park. But unfortunately, on the 7th of June 2016, psychology graduate Colin Scott and his sister Sable were traveling through a prohibited area of Yellowstone National Park with the intent to partake in hot potting within one of Yellowstone's thermal pools. I had to look this up, but yes, hot potting is the prohibited exercise of swimming in hot springs. The day, however, ended in tragedy when Scott accidentally fell into a hot spring within the Norris Geyser Basin, which not only ended his life, but dissolved his entire body. It is known that Sable had been filming their adventures, including when her brother fell into the spring. Heading into this event, Scott had recently graduated from Pacific University and traveled from Portland, Oregon to meet his sister. The pair decided to take a day trip to the Yellowstone National Park, parking not far from the Norris Geyser Basin. With nobody traveling alongside them, the Scotts opted to deviate from the prescribed boardwalk route that covers the thermal areas within the basin. This is an act prohibited within the park due to the dangerous nature of the hot springs at Yellowstone. According to the National Park Service, it is crucial for visitors to stay on the boardwalks, as the heat and acidity of the hot springs make them the biggest natural cause of death or injury within Yellowstone. According to park officials, at least 22 people have died from hot spring accidents at Yellowstone since 1890. However, not only did they ignore the warnings placed throughout the walking several hundred feet up a hill in the process, they had also planned to engage in hot potting, which is they were going to swim in these springs. Sable filmed herself and her brother via a smartphone deviating from the boardwalk path when they came across one of the hot pools. Colin kneeled down to examine the temperature of the spring when he suddenly slipped and fell into it. Under normal circumstances, water temperatures at Norris Geyser reach around 93 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to 199 degrees Fahrenheit. With his sister unable to rescue him, with her also suffering minor injuries in the process, Colin died from scalding as a result of the submersion within the thermal hot spring. His age was only 23. Sable was unable to call for immediate assistance as there was no mobile phone service at the basin, thus she was forced to retreat to the nearby Ranger Museum for assistance. When officials reached the spring, they found remains of Scott's head, upper torso, and hands. However, they were unable to recover these remains because the hot spring was now at 100 degrees Celsius, which is equivalent to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, with a lightning storm also being forecast. The next morning, the officials returned to the spring, but by that point, the acidic pool had completely dissolved Scott's body. All that remained were a few personal belongings, including his wallet and flip-flops. He had graduated from Pacific University a few weeks prior and was a top student, a wonderful person, and a testament to all the values that Pacific University stands for. Additionally, his family stated that he was a dedicated Christian whose love for people stemmed from the love he felt from God. As to the availability of the footage, it was detailed in an incident report under a Freedom of Information request that Sable had filmed the entire incident. While the transcription of the video had been censored, it is known that the video included the pair intentionally walking off the boardwalk, Scott slipping into the spring, and his sister's attempts to rescue him. Due to the video's disturbing nature, as well as out of respect to Scott and his relatives, park officials will not publicly release the footage. You know, you hear a lot about the kind of accidents and deaths people have at any number of national parks, whether it be a fall or, you know, an animal attack, but the idea of slipping into a pool of water and then literally being dissolved and burnt and scalded alive, pretty terrifying in all honesty. Definitely a nasty way to go. At number 5, and our final piece of Lost Media for our October Spooktacular, is the very fitting Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, a partially found uncut version of the horror film sequel from 1989. So Halloween 5, Revenge of Michael Myers is a 1989 slasher film, 5th installment of the Halloween franchise, and the second film in what's known as the Thorn trilogy of the series. Around the time of its release, the MPAA was heavily censoring violent films. No, they didn't like purple films, everybody. No, they were censoring violent films, demanding constant recuts to allow for the films to receive an R rating. Other films suffering from this restraint included Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, and Leatherface, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, with the former having many lost scenes of its own. So what was changed and taken out? Well, the original opening was different. The Shape, aka Michael Myers, his unconscious body, was originally found by an occult member named Dr. Death, played by Theron Reed, who would have then proceeded to carry him into a cave where he would perform an incantation ritual, raising the Shape from the dead before being killed. Actor Don Shanks claims this scene's removal was requested by series producer Mustafa Akkad, who was disturbed by the occult material feature. This is the only cut scene from the film known to have any viewable footage, being a small clip from behind the scenes content. Other things that were cut was certain violent scenes, so prolonged shots of violence were either shortened or cut entirely to appease film censors. Through careless editing, possible lost sequences can be reduced, and some scenes' existence is proven as they were described or mentioned by those involved in the film's production, and include the following. Mikey's body begins to twitch on the ground after being stabbed in the head with a gardening tool and lingered on for less time than originally shot. Scream Factory's October 2021 release's deleted gore bonus feature contains the missing 1 second of cut twitching. God, sometimes these edit requests are ridiculous. There was also filmed a somewhat long series of scenes in which Michael Myers arrives at the children's hospital that Jamie and Billy snuck out of right before, and proceeds to kill an entire SWAT team that are outside guarding the building. Don Shanks, the actor who played Michael Myers, mentioned in an episode of Horror's Hallowed Grounds to the program's host Sean Clark that the first SWAT team member is talking on a radio when Michael comes up behind him, breaks his neck, spinning his head around 180 degrees, pushes him to the ground, then stomps on his head, pushing it deeper and deeper into the ground, all while there is blood coming from his eyes, nose, etc. After this kill, another SWAT member charges at Michael Myers with an M16, which Michael wrestles the gun out of his hand and proceeds to shove or stab, presumably the barrel of the gun, through the SWAT member's head. After this, Michael proceeds to kill the rest of the SWAT team, but it is not mentioned how they were killed or how many more members there were. There exist 2 photos regarding the scene. After the Horror's Hallowed Grounds episode, the actor who played this SWAT member, John Paulton, saw that there was an interest in the series of kills that didn't make it into the film, and took to Facebook to share some of the behind-the-scenes shots and information, in which he posted 2 photos regarding his character's death. One is a shot of him with bloody makeup on, with his backwards costume on to make it look like his head was backwards from Michael spinning it around, and the other of his head partially in the ground as they applied more makeup to his face. Police Deputy Eddie's death was a continuity error where glass shards are seen piercing his face, even though the execution of the scene up to that point implies otherwise. This scene is confirmed to have been filmed as behind-the-scenes footage. Footage from Drew Cummings' 1998 The Making of Halloween 5 shows the recording of the original on-screen death in which Michael Myers punches through the driver's side window of the police cruiser, grabs the deputy's head, and smashes it into the side of the driver's side door. Greg Nicotero, the sound effects lead, explains that the scene was going to use a jump cut in which Michael would raise the deputy's head back up after the fake glass and makeup was applied, and then proceeds to show the filming of Michael Myers smashing the deputy's head several more times into the door. This footage only exists in VHS quality, and it is behind the scene footage, not the actual filming camera's footage, therefore it is still unreleased and considered lost. Billy is seen limping after nearly being hit by Michael Myers behind the wheel, suggesting that there was an impact of unknown magnitude shot, though this has never been confirmed, nor mentioned by any of the actors. The character Tina's death had an alternative shot, which may have been more bloody. Scream Factory's 2021 release deleted gore bonus does contain an additional second of this alternative shot as well, but the film is damaged in the lower half of the frame, making the actual stab not visible. Meaning it is unknown if it was more bloody or not, but the scene was still included as it showed the stab from a slightly alternate angle. It is unknown if there are any missing frames before or after the shot included, as there is no entry or removal of the knife shown in the footage. In the laundry chute scene, Michael Myers is seen stabbing into said passage with Jamie inside. She is seen crawling out of the intake on the floor with a vertical stab wound spanning a great span of her leg, which was not shown to have happened. Again, Screen Factory's release deleted gore bonus feature contains, you guessed it, 1 second of Jamie's leg gushing blood as Michael's knife pierces through both the laundry chute and her leg. However, there is no footage of the blade entering or being removed from her leg, and it is unknown if said footage exists, or if they had only used jump cuts. There was a slightly alternative ending that was filmed in which the shootout at the police station that Michael Myers was being held at was shown on screen, presumably showing the death of at least 2 officers, and showing the death of Sheriff Ben Meeker on screen. Rob Draper, the director of photography for the film, stated in an interview for the Taking Shape book that there was a great handheld shot through this long corridor in the police station while the shootout was unfolding. An issue of Fangoria shows 2 stills, one featuring 2 of the officers presumably killed in the shootout, as well as a shot of Sheriff Ben Meeker falling to his death after being shot in the chest. These scenes were never shown, but are said to have been filmed as per Rob Draper's interview. And finally, one change rumored to have existed was footage of Michael Myers with burn makeup near the ending. The story says that the producers, impressed by the concept art, gave the cosmetics team a choice to either apply grotesque burn marks to Michael Myers' face, mirroring his immolation at the end of Halloween 2, or forego the effort by obscuring his face in shadow, like in the final film. Unless the team's decision to favor the former was overruled before shooting, this scene may not be real, and there is no official statement on said scenes. So you might be wondering, why, how did we get these extra, 1 seconds of footage here and there, but the bulk of these remain unfound? Well, in 2019, photos of master tapes were published online by HalloweenMovies.com, with sites such as Bloody Disgusting interpreting it as news to come. Then in August of 2021, it was announced that it was Shout Factory that found the master tapes to the film and would include scenes from the uncut version on the release of the film, which was released on October 5th, 2021. Although this release did release a 28-second bonus feature of deleted gore, there is only 12 to 13 seconds of footage with no audio, some improper framing, and one scene being damaged enough that new footage doesn't even show anything new. So yes, we found the master copy, but it just wasn't in the condition it needed to be to regain all of the lost footage. Maybe another master copy exists, maybe it doesn't. But something tells me that fans of Michael Myers won't be satisfied until one is. At number 5, we have the Crack.com After Hours Why Mario is Secretly a Dick with a Mustache, which is a partially found extended version of an internet video from 2012. So apparently Cracked.com's After Hours program has had several of their episodes have slightly different versions, different types of censoring, whether you watched it on Crack.com or the YouTube version. And one of these is a video entitled Why Mario is Secretly a Dick with a Mustache. Apparently, when they uploaded the episode to YouTube after they had originally put it on Cracked, they noted in the comments that it was a special extended version that was only made available on YouTube. This cut was different from the original in that when Michael says "no genitals," it cuts to a picture of Bowser with a magnifying glass over his crotch to illustrate Michael's point, and after he asks, "What other man does that?" instead of immediately cutting to Katie saying, "the Castlevania guy," It instead shows the peach-resembling waitress asking about Luigi, Michael shunning his head, and then back to Katie saying, "Oh, the Castlevania guy." This version of the video was later removed from their YouTube channel because of, as Cracked put it in the comments of the regular version's upload, sexy legal reasons. Seeing as the only other different element of the cut would be the two additional words of dialogue, this is quite possibly referring to an official stock render of Bowser being used that could have alerted the attention of Nintendo, despite the series getting away with using numerous other aspects from the Super Mario series in the episode in-game footage and parodic animations, as well as generally using copyrighted material and movie and television clips throughout the entire series. This could also be referring to how the image was used in a humorous sexual context, but that also doesn't seem too distant from what the episode portrays in its brain animations. Cracked also states to have switched out an element of the episode when in actuality they just replaced the extended version with the regular version entirely, as in that case only the Bowser genitals imagery would have been replaced and not also the extended dialogue with the waitress and Katie. It's also worth noting that the teaser for the second season of After Hours also had alternate footage for the Mario episode that is unused or not seen on screen. This doesn't include any footage relating to the extended version, nor is it considered a part of this lost media to be found. While it's unknown if any may have copied the specific upload while it was available and still have it, a fan-made recreation of the missing scenes has since been uploaded. Now, I know that, there's this whole thing, I do it myself, that if you're parodying, if you're educating, all that, you can use copyrighted material. But the thing is Nintendo is very, we've talked about this before, it's very adamant about the protection of their intellectual property. So using stock footage of Bowser looking for his genitals, who knows, might have been a step too far for Nintendo, and even though, Crack.com might have been in the right, who wants to go into a protracted legal battle with Nintendo that will get very expensive for what sounds to be a minuscule bit of additional footage that really doesn't add much to the overall video. This, in my opinion, is just one of those cases where not all lost media has to be something fantastic that, is lost forever, that ultimately changes the way we look at things. Sometimes it's just they cut a scene for legal reasons and that scene is now gone. But I definitely think, it needs to be archived that it's missing, but I don't think we'll ever see this one. Cracked probably doesn't even have the footage anymore. They probably just junked it and decided it was not worth it for them. And I definitely, this is the other thing I think of this, is that I definitely think there's a lot of cases of something being slightly changed from its original version, and that people remember the original version, and I think that's what leads to the Mandela effect in a lot of cases. There's something that was in something originally, it was just quietly changed, and that change was never really archived or documented, so people come back to it later, they see the changed version and go, wait, that's not what I remember, but the fact is that just nobody ever documented that it changed, and so I do think even small bits of lost media like this one are important to archive, because I definitely think a lot of Mandela effect instances are just cases of lost media because something was changed and nobody bothered to write that down. So at number 5, we have Natalie Maines' Lost Death Threat Letter from 2003. Now, of course, Natalie Maines is the lead vocalist of the famous American country music band, the Dixie Chicks, or now simply known as the Chicks. In 2003, shortly after the then President of the United States, George W. Bush, declared war on Iraq, the Dixie Chicks spoke out strongly against it. Lead vocalist, of course, Natalie Maines, who this is about, held a public hearing in London 10 days before the invasion, stating she was ashamed to be from the same state as Bush. Now, the problem is, country music fans kind of a lot of Republicans, a lot of that. So, they weren't happy. Country music fans ridiculed the band, calling them traitors, and resulting in many impacts, including a massive drop in sales and sponsorships, but also a new interest and respect from non-country music fans in the left wing, and a short-lived humorous rivalry with Toby Keith. Now, their record label forced Maines to make a public statement apologizing for her comments against Bush, but by the time she did this, it was kind of considered to be far too late. Many fans responded to Maine's statement with vitriolic, angry hate mail. One particularly angry fan, whose identity has yet to be confirmed, wrote a graphic death threat to Maines. He made the circumstances of how he was going to kill her very specific. He had a method, location, date, and weapon in mind, with one known quote reading, "You will be shot dead at your show in Dallas," referring to an upcoming scheduled Chicks performance not long away. Frightened by the letter, Maines decided to add extra security to her public appearances, and when the aforementioned Dallas concert was subsequently held, the band were escorted in and out by police. No attempts were made to harm them. The threat did, however, play a major role in the band's lengthy hiatus until 2013. Maines has never allowed the letter to leak and has never shown it to members of the press. No copies of the letter have surfaced online. She has commented on it, saying she will never let anyone see it because of its bone-chilling graphic nature. The only other released content known to be from the letter is a few words contained in the lyrics to their 2006 hit, Not Ready to Make Nice, those being "Shut up and sing or your life is over." In the same year, a documentary about the controversy was titled after the quote, "Shut up and sing." It is not known if Maines or the FBI currently hold a copy of the letter. Now, this one is interesting to me for a couple reasons. One, it just shows you how nuts some people can get if they think that one of their favorite performers, who they have no connection to beyond enjoying their music or the content they create, does something that goes against what they want them to do. People have this weird concept of ownership of artists and celebrities, and they get very upset when they go against what they want. And I think that is definitely, we've seen other cases in this world where someone, showed up to an actress's house and unalived her because he was offended that she was in a sex scene in a movie. So, this writing a terrible letter is not in any way, shape, or form out of the ordinary for this kind of fanaticism, so to speak. But I've always thought the whole thing surrounding the Chicks and their statements was very interesting from a marketing perspective, because the thing is, as country singers, they had to know that their fan base were mostly, country fans who typically, if we're going with stereotypes here, so if you're a country fan and you're not these things, I apologize, but this is what, the general consensus on country fans is a bunch of right-wing hicks that were, God and America first, thank God we're going over to Iraq to give those people the sweet light of freedom and Jesus and all that, and, they loved GW. And to openly speak out against all that wasn't gonna go well for the band. They seem to have forgotten their market base. Cool, you had a platform and you used it, and I respect that. It was a great move morally. From a business standpoint, not so much. And, while it did give them more respect and notice from the more liberal side of things, I don't see the Chicks headlining any of those music festivals. So I think ultimately, yeah, it was kind of a weird business move. But that being said, they of course did not deserve to be threatened just for having an opinion and making it known, which is a right that all people in this country of America are supposed to have, but sadly, in many cases, it seems we do not. I do hope that they were at least able to discover who wrote the note, and that even if he did not face any formal punishment, I feel like we would have heard about that he was given a stern talking to and put the fear of quote-unquote God into him so that he never one threatens or attempts to make good on his threats to anyone in the future. It sucks when you can be put in fear of your life for having an opinion. All right, so at number 5, we have the final videotape of Daniel V. Jones, a lost final videotape of a Los Angeles self-unaliving victim in 1998. On April 30th of 1998, Daniel Victor Jones, a 40-year-old maintenance worker from Long Beach, California, drove his pickup truck to a Los Angeles freeway along with his pet dog Gladys. He then proceeded to get the attention of the police using a loaded shotgun. The freeway was closed and several news helicopters began covering the incident, which was being broadcast live. At one point, Jones set his truck on fire with a Molotov cocktail, then grabbed his shotgun and unalived himself, all of which was caught on camera. His dog Gladys perished inside the flaming pickup truck. Jones had been suffering from both HIV and cancer and claimed to have been mistreated by health maintenance organizations, HMOs. His live self-unaliving was meant as a protest against HMOs. Moments before taking his life, he unfurled a banner on the freeway that read, "HMOs are in it for the money. Live free, love safe, or die." Now, here comes the piece of lost media. Shortly before he took his own life, Jones threw a satchel containing a videotape over the freeway wall. Authorities recovered the videotape, which was a unaliving note recorded by Jones the previous day. The contents of the tape were shared in the news days after his unfortunate passing. Ever since then, the tape hasn't been made public and its whereabouts are unknown. This one, I think, is interesting and tragic because here we have a man who was at his wit's end. His life was ending. He knew it. He knew it was going to be a painful death, and he felt like the medical care facilities had failed him. This was a time when there wasn't a lot of knowledge about AIDS. I mean, we knew what it was, but, there was a lot of misinformation, and people that had it were treated like pariahs. Nowadays, we have medications that if you take them long enough, you can have unprotected sex and not pass HIV to your partner, but we certainly didn't have anything like that. And I looked into this one a little more. Daniel Jones, he wanted to get his message out there, and he's like, I want people to know what's going on, and I certainly don't want anyone other than myself to get hurt. This situation is ultimately my fault, but that doesn't mean what these HMOs are doing to me is right. And so he kind of got his message out in the only way he could think to do, and he put an end to his own suffering. And for the fact that I'm sure he had some words of, I don't know if I'd say wisdom, but certainly his last words were very important to him as he kind of threw it to where there was no chance it would get destroyed by what he was doing. I'm a little annoyed that he took his own dog out by doing this, because what did the dog ever do? But at the same time, the fact that the tape was never made public means that this man's final words cannot be heard, and I think that is a tragedy, unless he was saying something truly awful, in which case, oh well. And at number 5, we have Happy Days. No, not that Happy Days. No, these Happy Days are lost, unreleased, fabricated pornographic films of an Indonesian president. Existence is unconfirmed, circa 1960s. So in the 1960s, the first president of Indonesia, Sukarno, also known as Sukarno due to some spelling mistake, well, he was the first president of Indonesia, and the CIA was trying to overthrow him because of his closeness to the Soviet Union. So both the CIA and the Soviet KGB had discontented and vexed feelings towards this guy because of his behavior, governance, and his attitude. It wasn't pleasing to either the West or the Soviets, even though apparently a huge majority of Indonesians being communists at the time, the Soviets and Sukarno, still in various degrees, didn't see eye to eye with each other, because it wasn't enough to just be a communist. For Russia to like you, you had to be a Soviet communist. So the KGB had tried to, get on his good side, get him to join their Soviet alliance, but all these attempts failed. So this would cause the Soviet KGB to plan to blackmail him by making and fabricating pornographic films starring him, all due to him not wanting to side with the Soviet Union. The KGB blackmailed him by filming him with a flight attendant during his visit to Moscow in 1960 to discredit his image in front of the Indonesians and foment a revolt. When the Russians confronted him about the sex tape, he asked to watch it and was surprisingly pleased with the tape. He even asked for additional copies of the sex tape and to show it back in his country. I mean, hey, this guy must have had some moves, I guess. Now, when the CIA heard that the Russians were trying to bring him down with pornographic films, they also went ahead and made pornographic films of him. The CIA manipulated photos of Sukarno and a Soviet flight attendant to tarnish his image. The idea that for the pornographic video came from a flight attendant who boarded a plane with him on his way to the Soviet Union. The CIA reported that Sukarno was involved in a scandal with a flight attendant who was an intelligence agent. They eventually produced their own pornographic film, paying actors with face masks similar to Sukarno, who were imported from Indonesia. What the fuck? So apparently the film was made for the CIA by former FBI agents Robert Mayhew and Howard Hughes. I don't think that's the Howard Hughes from The Aviator. But while Mayhew had no experience with any making of pornographic films or filmography, he apparently knew an actor named Chuck Case that resembled but was not identical to Sukarno, and that with help from a makeup artist, Bing Cosby, this actor was set to play him in the film. It's rumored that while the film was never released, it is reported that images of the film have resurfaced in numerous publications from the 70s, though it remains unclear. Also, it supposedly would have been called Happy Days, but that's not entirely confirmed either. And apparently, ultimately, the whole reason this was not used to blackmail him is because they did show it to a couple people, and the Indonesian response was actually very positive. They're like, hey, yeah, President, get you some. And it wouldn't have had a negative effect on his reputation. And so apparently everything I just told you is can put a big allegedly on it, because Sukarno was ousted from the presidency in 1967 and passed away 3 years later on June 1st of 1970. And while there has been a lot of talk about these films, none of the information about them has ever been confirmed. I think it's hilarious how far we have come as a world where, back in the day, a video of two people who aren't married having consensual sex could be considered career-ending. And nowadays it's like, look, as long as both parties are consenting, who cares? We have come a long way from the prudes we were back in the 50s and 60s. I also love the idea of a world leader being blackmailed by America and the Soviets during the Cold War, and they're like, hey, if you don't, Russia comes and goes, hey, if you don't do what we say, we'll release this tape of you having sex with a flight attendant. And he's like, please do. Please do. I want everyone to see how awesome I am. And then the US, who knows what they knew? I mean, I'm sure they knew all of that if it was true. They had spies everywhere. But they were like, oh, well, we'll make a fake tape of him having sex with a flight attendant. And it's like, wait, you can't eat... What? Apparently this guy... No. I just think it's hilarious that the US was like... They looked at what the KGB had done and failed at doing and went, hey, we're going to do this, but we're going to do it worse. I don't know. The Cold War was a crazy time. I mean, they literally thought they could design a bomb that would make all the soldiers super gay balls for each other. So, they were just trying everything, and they were throwing science and espionage at a wall and seeing what stuck. Alright, so at number 5 we have Tsukichi Saya Lost Monthly Japanese Idol DVD series from 2008 to 2009. Now, Saya Irei, known professionally under the mononym Saya, is a Japanese idol and actress. She began her career at age 11 in 2005 as a junior idol. This is a controversial category of young models, usually aged 15 and under, appearing on gravure DVDs, which is like, sexy bikini model stuff, which is really weird considering, again, she was 11. She also appeared in photo books and was a member of a couple of musical groups. She came into international attention and notoriety early on due to her unusually large bust for a Japanese girl her age, as well as the fact that she often posed in bikinis and other swimwear for her videos and books. Again, she was 11 when she started doing this. She also acted in mainstream movies and television. Now, the junior idol industry has become increasingly more taboo ever since, even in Japan, to the point where it's virtually extinct today, and most junior idols fade into obscurity when they get past the age of 15, which is again super creepy. However, Saya instead continued to find success well into adulthood, releasing a limited edition crowdfunded photo book in late 2021 to commemorate 15 years as an idol. Now, in 2008, the site tsukichisaya.com was launched. It was a membership-based site that put out content on a monthly basis. Among the content were monthly videos 30 to 36 minutes in length in DVD format. Now, remember, when this site would have launched and she would have been putting out these videos, she would have been 14 and 15 years old. Now, you might be asking yourself, what's so interesting about a series of DVDs featuring an underage girl in a bunch of skimpy outfits? I mean, it sounds awful, but why are we talking about it here? Because, of course, every one of these things that I list on this video, I somehow, give my 2 cents on why I find it interesting. And honestly, the thing I find interesting about these videos is how they were distributed. As I said before, they were DVD format, but they were not released on physical DVDs. Rather, the members could download the DVD content to software on their computer using a process known as DVD Toaster. So they would download the content to software on their computer, which would then write content to a DVD-R via their DVD burner. Now, DVD-RW, DVD plus R, DVD plus RW, and DVD plus RDL were incompatible with this format, so it was just DVD-R that you could do this with. At least 12 of these DVDs were produced, and they were not included as part of the membership, as each one cost 1,200 yen to burn, so roughly that would have been $12. The DVD Toaster service was provided by Ace Deuce Entertainment, who served as the publisher of the volumes. But yes, perhaps due to the limited method of distribution, footage from these DVDs has rarely been seen since the site shut down. The DVDs themselves have also apparently never been sold in the aftermarket, likely due to the fact that they were burned at home by the consumer and would thus appear to be bootlegs, though they technically aren't. The only publicly available footage from any of the DVDs is a trailer for the first volume on YouTube, albeit in very poor quality. And honestly, the only thing I really find interesting about this is the method to which this content was originally distributed. I think it is perfectly fine that these gravure DVDs, however you pronounce it, of a 14/15-year-old Japanese model can just fucking stay lost, but it is an interesting concept. God, I can't even remember the last time I burned a DVD. At number 5, we have the 2012 Olympics promotional video, a partly found controversial Olympic advert from 2008. So this piece of lost media concerns a 3-minute promotional advert showcasing the city of London ahead of the 2012 Olympic Games that featured a short clip of a portrait of the infamous serial killer Myra Hindley. The video was made by London's tourism board, Visit London, and showed many different aspects of London culture. So a bit of background as to why this is controversial. Myra Hindley was one of the most notorious serial killers in the UK. Between 1963 and 1965, she and her boyfriend Ian Brady murdered 4 children and buried their bodies on the Saddleworth Moor. After they were both arrested, Myra's mugshot was printed in newspapers, where the image would become synonymous with the evilness in the eyes of the British public. The portrait shown in the video is called Myra from 1995 and was created by artist Marcus Harvey, who remade the murderer's famous mugshot using children's handprints. It was first shown at the Sensation exhibit in 1997 at London's Royal Academy of Art. Many of the artworks in the exhibition were considered controversial, but Myra caused the most outrage among the public. On the opening day of the exhibition, there was a protest outside the Academy from a group Mothers Against Murders and Aggression, and inside the exhibit, the portrait was vandalized twice. So needless to say, not a popular figure, not a popular piece of art. Now, in 2008, a party was held in Beijing at the London House celebrating the handover of the next Olympic Games to London for 2012. At the party, a promotional video made by Visit London played on a big screen for the guests. Attending this party was UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown, London Mayor Boris Johnson, and many other important people. The video showcased many different aspects of London's culture. However, what caught people's attention was the brief second the portrait of Myra Hindley was shown on screen. After the party was over, a spokesperson for Downing Street said, "The use of this image is in extremely poor taste and it should not have been used to promote London." Now, as to its availability, Visit London has said that the video is not for general public use and has been used many times over the last few years to show to the tourism trade. They have also said, however, if any offense has been caused, we will withdraw it from use with immediate effect. Contrary to the first statement from Visit London, the video was said to have been on their website in the past. Part of the promo can be seen playing in the background of an interview by CCTV, China Central Television, where the portrait is shown for a brief second. Now, I am 100% in favor of there being just free speech for everybody. If you want to make a portrait of a famous child unaliver and make that out of a kind of a collage of children's handprints, more power to you. I just don't think it was smart for London's tourism board to feature it in a video that they supposedly used as a way to pitch visiting London to various tourism agencies. I mean, London has a vibrant art scene. Why, of all the pieces you could showcase, would it be this one? I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to use it, I'm just saying it was kind of a dumb move. Like, I guarantee these projects, these videos, this Visit London promo video, I'm sure it had a team working on it, and they had to run ideas by their superiors. It wasn't just one guy who was like, yeah, I'm going to clip a second of this portrait in. So how, at any point during the creation of this video, was there not one person that went, maybe not that painting? So while yes, this is a piece of lost media, and honestly kind of for good reason, it's not available to the public, it is in poor taste, I just want to know why London's tourism board, Visit London, ever thought it was a good idea to put this in one of their videos. Like, what did they think was going to happen? That's the lost media I want to see. I want to see the minutes of their meetings where they were talking about putting this in the video and why nobody thought that was a bad idea. That's what I want to see. Now, our fifth and not safe for work piece today is Radio Flyer, non-existent build of a cancelled Super Nintendo movie tie-in game from 1992. When I found this article on the Lost Media Wiki, this is what inspired me to make this entire video of video games that never actually got made. Now, if you've not seen it, Radio Flyer is a movie about two boys who are horribly abused by their stepfather. And in the end, the youngest brother escapes by building himself a working airplane out using his Radio Flyer red wagon. It's a good movie, but it's a dark movie. And I was kind of amazed when I saw the name. I'm like, that can't be what they were going to make a video game of. Like, okay, but it was, so let's get into this one. Radio Flyer is a cancelled flying game that was in development by Ocean for the Super Nintendo based on the 1992 drama movie of the same name. It was scheduled for release sometime in 1992. The game was cancelled for unknown reasons, but a possible reason could be that it was based on a movie about child physical abuse. Yeah, that's what I was saying. In an issue of the UK gaming magazine Retro Gamer, it was confirmed by former Ocean employee and artist Brian Flanagan that development for Radio Flyer was axed before it even started. The movie being about child abuse appears to be the reason for its cancellation. The screenshots sent to gaming magazines could possibly have been mock-ups of what the game would have been like. Again, I feel like this is a perfect example of the 90s being a time where games started to be able to look really cool, and as such you could have fun tie-ins and all that. It wasn't just, a series of dots and pixels on a screen. You could really go all out with some of these home console games, and they were trying to entice people to buy the games by linking them with popular properties. And yes, the Radio Flyer movie, great movie. I remember seeing it as a kid going, wow, that's like the idea, like I still, when I think about movies where a child is, abused, and like showing that in a way that like as a kid makes you go, wow, I can't believe some people have to live like this. I think of Radio Flyer. Like it's a very moving drama about these two brothers and their will to survive this horrible situation. I would never have thought to have based a video game on it, let alone one that is just a flying game where you're flying around in the Radio Flyer machine and it's like, yeah, no, this is fun, this is lighthearted. That is not the plot of this movie. I feel like these video game, board members, decision makers, just were trying to throw things at the wall and seeing what stuck. And at the same time, they were dealing with the fact that sometimes they would throw out these ideas and it's like, oh my God, what were we thinking? But so, this game never existed. And if you haven't seen it, go watch Radio Flyer. At number 5, we have 120 Days of Sodom, a found novel by the Marquis de Sade from 1785. So this novel, 120 Days of Sodom, is a 1785 novel written by Donatien Alphonse François, the Marquis de Sade. It was written in secrecy during de Sade's time imprisoned in the Bastille in France, and was taken right before the revolutionaries stormed the Bastille. He believed it to be lost, but it was secretly taken and owned by different people over time until its eventual publication in 1904. Due to its disturbing and sadistic sexual content, including primarily the exploitation of children, it has been banned in several countries and is widely considered to be the most impure tale ever written. The term sadism is derived from the name of Marquis de Sade, in part because of this book. The book was originally written on a scroll of paper made of glued together scraps smuggled into the Bastille. The scroll was 12 meters long, and the Marquis de Sade hid it in his cell wall in the Bastille. Now, on July 4th of 1789, he was transferred to another prison and was unable to take the scroll with him. 2 days prior to the storming of the Bastille by French revolutionaries, a citizen named Arnaud de Saint-Maximin took the manuscript. It is unknown where he took it, but it was eventually discovered by the sexologist Iwan Bloch, who published the book in 1904 under the pseudonym Eugene Durin. This one I find interesting because from what little I've read of the Marquis de Sade, just about him, not of it, and I've not actually read any of his works, but the guy had some pretty unusual sexual appetites, and his works often express those and even worse than what he was known to have done. We have this idea that back in the day, everybody was very prim and proper, and if you weren't, you hid that away, or you were sent to a mental institution because you were such a deviant. And yes, the Marquis was sent to he even died in a mental institution. He was imprisoned in the Bastille for sexual crimes. But it just goes to show you that every era had its perverts. The old ways, they were no more prim and proper than we were. The idea that everybody in the past was very polite and sexually repressed is a wishful thinking of conservatives and puritanicals who wish for in their words, better time. But everybody since the dawn of man have just been filthy, filthy perverts. And nobody displays that better probably than the Marquis de Sade. All right, guys, for our spicy piece today, we have something that is kind of part of the lost wave thing, where we have some of the song, but we don't really know a lot about it. It's kind of like the most mysterious song on the internet, or Everyone Knows That, which is a piece we covered in a previous episode, but this one is Please Don't Stop, a partially found power metal synth song used in Israeli VHS logo from the 1980s. Malibu Video was an Israeli VHS distribution company that was active sometime throughout the 1980s. Not much is known about the company in question, especially when compared to most other VHS distributors that were more popular, such as United King Video or Empire of Cinema. While not much has shown up about them, one especially mysterious thing about it is that it uses an English language power metal synth song that was unidentified until recently. Aside from the song being performed by the band Aladdin's Magic Rub, there is hardly any other legitimate information about the song itself online, even when looking up the lyrics for the song. However though, there are some things that some people have been able to identify. Firstly, this is seemingly only the first minute of the song, and the fading at the end of what we have seems to have been done by the people behind the creation of the logo. The lyrics themselves have been identified outside of the last few seconds. And it goes, "Please don't stop, it feels so right. I want to make it last all night. You make me feel like I can't say no, so hold me all night before you go. The way you touch, the things you say, the way you move takes my breath away. Feels so good, it feels so right. You're gonna be that special night. Don't stop, please don't stop, don't stop. I need to hold you till the morning time. Please don't stop. Don't stop, don't. It feels so right. Stop, don't. Let's go all night. Stop." And then it becomes inaudible because of the fade out. See, I told you this entry was a little spicier. Interestingly enough, one of the higher pitched synths used throughout the song was also used in the most mysterious song on the internet, which used the synth right at the end in a lower pitch than this song. So see, there's even more connections. As to its availability, up until recently, only this part of the song is known to have surfaced on the internet so far due to it being found in a compilation of Israeli VHS logos. These logos, as well as several Greek VH logos, are infamous among the logo community for stealing music from other sources, though the Greek logos are more well known. These logos also don't credit the music being used in the logo at all, making it even harder for it to find. Despite this, people have been able to identify several pieces of the music they use, such as the Greek logo PAP video, which infamously stole The Final Countdown by Europe. On May 31st, 2023, at the very least, the title and artist of the song have finally been identified. By then, it was also revealed to have been used in the 1986 adult film Please Don't Stop, specifically at the very end. So, given the fact that the band's name, Aladdin's Magic Rub, sounds like a euphemism, and it seems like the only time this song was ever used outside of being stolen for the Malibu video logo was that it was played both throughout the film and during the credits of an adult film that shares the same name as this song. It sounds like this was a studio band put together just to have a song for an adult film. I would sincerely doubt if Aladdin's Magic Rub did anything besides make the title track for this adult film that shares the song's name. But that being said, I think probably the best course of action would be to contact whatever studio made this film or whoever owns it now, because they probably own the only full copy of the song, because they probably just had whatever some local group come together and do this and get credited as Aladdin's Magic Rub, which again, that alone sounds like an adult film title. But I think it's out there, and I think maybe people will be lucky enough to find it someday. That is, if the adult film company that owns it will take a second to stop playing with balls and play ball. Alright guys, it's time for that fifth and final piece of the episode, the spicier, so to speak, Lost Media piece. I use that term, I'm trying not to offend the algorithm, so, that we're going with the word spicy. But today's fifth piece is The Andrew Show, partially found internet show from 2009 to 2011, and this one's a doozy, guys. The Andrew Show was an amateur talk show based in Arkansas which focused around the titular 10-year-old child describing his views on right-wing politics and white supremacist beliefs, if you can believe it. I don't believe I had right-wing political views or any kind of view on racial supremacy or otherwise at 10 years old. I had a lot of views on cartoons, but definitely not politics or racial issues. But to each their own, I suppose. The scripts written for the show were not done by Andrew, and they were alleged to be entirely made by his parents, who were part of the Ku Klux Klan known as the KKK. This is supposedly supported with the fact that Andrew's grandfather is Thomas Robb, who is the current leader / national director of the KKK. Originally filmed from 2009 to 2011, the show was uploaded to various websites and YouTube until the YouTube channel was deleted in 2014, along with all 21 episodes of it. Episodes from The Andrew Show have also appeared to be wiped from many other websites. As to the plot of the show, it revolves around Andrew talking about right-wing politics and white supremacist beliefs in all of his episodes. Andrew would cover topics such as race mixing, gun control, and sexual education, and also answered viewers' emails. It has been theorized by many that Andrew's parents had produced the show to bring in more youth support for the white supremacy and KKK movements. Now, as to the show's reception, many news outlets such as the Huffington Post, Vice, Jezebel, and The Rooster covered the show in their articles. Furthermore, the episodes would apparently get medium reception on views, with one episode having 24,000 views, though with a higher number of dislikes compared to the number of likes. I mean, guys, I'm sorry I can't bring you content that's as popular as this show's, but if we could get this episode up to 24,000 views, I would be very happy, and that would not be medium for me. That would be amazing. Now for its availability. Out of all 21 episodes of the show, only 4 have been archived, with one being partially found. With how old the websites that held the show on are, and with YouTube having terminated the show's channel, it has become extremely hard to find any episodes of The Andrew Show. While some have claimed to be able to watch the episodes on some of these websites, these witnesses did not archive the episodes. The only way these episodes could potentially be found is through downloads of the show prior to their deletion. In some cases, it is better if The Andrew Show stays lost due to its disturbing content and apparent manipulative control that the KKK has over Andrew. Now, that comes directly from the Lost Media Wiki article, but I agree completely. I think this is, what we have archived already should be kept so that it's, we see that this kind of thing has happened, but I don't think that for any type of entertainment value can be found from recovering these. Alright guys, our final spicy piece is also this week's fan-requested piece of lesser-known Lost Media. Sadly, it looks like I just went searching through my comments to try and figure out who requested this, but it looks like their comment, they deleted their comment, which must be the case. Either I'm just missing it, I don't delete comments, so if it's up, they might have taken it down, but so sorry, whoever you are that recommended this, thank you. I really should copy down who suggests these when I make my list. But so our fan-requested spicy media piece is the 2022 UEFA Champions League Final, lost CCTV footage of crowd incidents during international football match from 2022. So on the 28th of May 2022, the 2022 UEFA Champions League final between Liverpool and Real Madrid commenced at the Stade de France. While the game proved uncontroversial, with Real Madrid winning 1-0 to earn its 14th title, it was marred by scenes of extreme violence and disorderly conduct pre- and post-match, resulting in about 238 injuries and 105 arrests. The carnage caused by insufficient crowd control measures and disastrous routing towards the ground produced a severe blockage outside the stadium and delayed kickoff for 36 minutes. A failure in policing also enabled local gangs to commit widespread attacks, muggings, and SA on fans leaving the ground post-match. UEFA and French authorities initially blamed Liverpool fans for attempting to breach the stadium with fake tickets, but official reports declared there were inadequate safety and security provisions heading into the match. French authorities were also heavily criticized for failing to obtain footage from the Stade de France's 260 CCTV cameras, which let the extremely violent recordings be automatically erased a week following the incidents. Most relevant public transport CCTV footage has also become permanently lost. So why did this happen? Well, France was never originally considered to host the 2022 Champions League final, but on 24th of September 2019, the UEFA Executive Committee appointed the Krestovsky Stadium in St. Petersburg to host the 2021 final, with its only competition being Munich's Allianz Arena. Allianz was instead selected to host 2022. As a result of the C19P, I don't know if YouTube lets us say that currently, but host rearrangements meant St. Petersburg would instead play host to the 2022 edition. But on the 24th of February 2022, Russia's invasion of Ukraine prompted UEFA to strip all upcoming hosting duties from either country. The replacement 2022 host was the Stade de France in St. Denis, which had previously hosted the 2000 and 2006 editions and UEFA Euro 2016 matches. With a maximum seating arrangement of 80,698, it was hoped that Stade de France would sufficiently demonstrate France's organizational skills and security, especially as the stadium was chosen to host athletics and rugby 7 competitions for the upcoming 2024 Summer Olympics. The stadium was affected by the 2015 Paris terror attacks when 3 bombers failed to breach the ground during an international friendly between France and Germany, resulting in a bystander's demise. As the 28th of May approached, UEFA tasked the French Football Federation, the FFF, or the as you might put it, and local authorities to organize proceedings. With about 3 months to prepare, the original crowd control approach was relatively simple, mandating that fans of each club would reach the stadium from the northern and southern ends. This would enable everyone to travel safely without the threat of bottlenecking, crushes, or clashes with rival fans. However, the southern route had previously suffered security holes. During the 2016 Coupe de France final between Olympique de Marseille and Paris Saint-Germain, inadequate safety provisions meant frequent clashes between fans, bottlenecks, and major failure to detect contraband despite extensive security checks, which fueled the resulting violence. The 2022 final on the 7th of May featured Nice against Nantes, I don't think I pronounced that right at all, was also hit with bottleneck problems when Nice fans were misdirected to the wrong turnstiles. Said final was used to identify security and organizational concerns that could affect the Champions League final. As the Champions League final was obviously a bigger event, French police concluded 5 days before kickoff that the southern route was inadequate. Thus, Liverpool fans would instead be instructed to harness an alternative route. This course would involve walking through the streets of St. Denis before reaching an A1 subway that would directly guide them to the southwest side of the stadium, with them also traveling through a checkpoint designated as Additional Security Perimeter Entrance 3, ASP3. Meanwhile, Real Madrid fans would travel through the usual northern route. Both sides were also allocated fan zones at the Cours de Vincennes and Parc de la Maison d'Éducation de la Légion d'Honneur respectively. Liverpool fans going to the Cours de Vincennes route were expected to travel 7 miles towards either the La Plaine or Stade de France Saint-Denis train stations. In contrast, the anticipated 6,000 Madrid supporters traveled through Parc de la Maison could reach their destination in 15 to 20 minutes via walking or harnessing public transport, with at least 7,000 police officers protecting the zones and stadium. 260 CCTV cameras at the stadium to record and deter criminal actions, and the Liverpool fan zone boasting a capacity of 44,000. It appeared security was adequate for the event. However, reality proved significantly different. I do hope you followed me on all that, and I apologize for my terrible French accent. So, problems started even during the pre-match. So for the majority of Real Madrid fans, the path towards the Stade de France saw them reach their seats by the planned kickoff time of 9 p.m. CET. However, security and organizational flaws did emerge. Some French individuals infiltrated the zone to commit assaults and theft of valuables. Available footage showed some of these men being arrested and battered by riot police. Problems also arose during ticket inspections, which were described as slow and sometimes inaccurate. The main cause surrounded using pen markers, which meant it often took minutes to verify tickets instead of the usual seconds, with further delays caused by frequent false positives of otherwise legitimate tickets. As inspections were slower than anticipated, it triggered bottlenecks caused by those arriving by subway, exceeding the number entering the stadium. According to one eyewitness, the threat of human crushes was high. Amidst the panic within the narrowing walkway, thieves pickpocketed mobile phones, some of which contained e-tickets. Others ended up off course alongside lost Liverpool fans. Yeah, years and years ago, I went to France, and that was the one thing they told us: always be aware of pickpockets, especially in Paris. Apparently, it's very prevalent there. But things were even worse on the Liverpool route, which began with the railway system. The liaison group meeting held on the 3rd of March between UEFA and key French stakeholders concluded that Liverpool fans would travel via 2 lines, the RER-B to La Plaine and RER-D to Stade de France Saint-Denis. However, B was hit by both engineering works and sudden strike action. Thus, the decision was made to redirect most fans to D, resulting in around 36,000 arriving via the route compared to just the 6,200 from B. Worse still, the fan zone was also dangerously overcrowded, with an estimated 50,000 people. The zone consisted of fans with tickets and supporters seeking to potentially buy last-minute tickets, or at least enjoy the atmosphere, watch the game via big screens, and tour France. The UCLF 22 independent review later determined that the closure of B was unnecessary, as despite the strike action, it only lost 20% of its capacity. The supporters were then directed through the St. Denis streets. Because the rerouting was hastily conducted, there was inadequate signage directing people to the new course. One roadside also misled spectators into taking the wrong course towards the stadium. Other fans became completely lost and ended up with Real Madrid counterparts in a different queue altogether. Most fans traveled through the narrow A1 subway. It soon became apparent it was inadequate to funnel through excessive numbers of supporters, something that also plagued the 2006 Coupe de France final that had been raised in a meeting a day prior. The subway became dangerously congested, as photos of the day illustrated. By around 6 p.m. CET, the supporters were only meters from the stadium. Despite this, most would wait hours before they could gain entry. Had RERB been properly utilized, fans would have split between two checkpoint perimeters, which would have enabled stewards to check tickets efficiently without fear of bottlenecks. However, with B de-emphasized, tens of thousands were approaching the RERD checkpoint ASP3 and current D-stewardship. Police and 5-lane system were woefully outnumbered, inexperienced, and unprepared to deal with increased capacity. Worse still, panic had arisen among UEFA and French authorities that had up to 50,000 were planning to enter with counterfeit or no tickets. Thus, when also considering the lingering threat of terrorism, ticket and security checks had intensified. Travel between the subway to the stadium soon grounded to a halt. Inspections were slow, like on the Real Madrid side, and while some unauthorized fans were detected, the checkpoint lacked proper means to remove them from the vicinity. By 6:19 p.m., a massive bottleneck containing around 15,000 formed, which worsened 20 minutes later and forced some spectators onto a nearby road. The conditions became especially cramped by the presence of parked police vans. Designed to prevent vehicle terrorist incidents like the 2016 Nice lorry attack, it also resulted in supporters being boxed in. Suddenly, the possibility of a human crush was rife, fueling intense panic within the queue. Among those in the bottleneck included some individuals who attended Hillsborough Stadium on the 15th of April, 1989, which saw the deaths of 96 Liverpool fans from a human crush at the Leapings Lane stand. Some were also forced to climb over a wall which barricaded the checkpoint, creating the risk of people being trampled. Others were apparently redirected to the additional security perimeter entrance for ASP4, which, despite being considerably safer and able to deal with larger than expected crowds, was barely utilized for this event. By 6:39 p.m., police and stewards achieved a consensus that the checkpoint could no longer cope with the overcrowding. Thus appeared there was little choice but to cease checks, allowing everyone in. While this prevented a human crush from unfolding, it naturally raised major security issues. While there ultimately were no terrorists in the vicinity, it allowed ticketless supporters, locals, and immigrants really, to freely move 2 meters outside the stadium. The local residents had bypassed ASP checks via the Avenue du General de Gaulle, which was allowed to remain open despite the hazard it posed and with little police presence. Others got through via shops, public buildings, and even a construction site. As fans reached the turnstiles, they were shocked to discover they had been shut because ASP3 had failed to prevent unauthorized individuals from reaching the stadium. Police and stewards closed the turnstiles to assess the situation. Suddenly, the human crush threat returned as queuing fans began to be pushed into the stadium's turnstiles, gates, and fences. At least 400 locals committed widespread attack, muggings, and theft within the stranded crowd, including to obtain tickets and phones. Some individuals tried to breach the stadium by climbing the adjacent fences, queue jumping, and attempting to bypass stewards. Stewards responded by tackling these individuals to the ground, while riot police were called in response to extensive pressure on the turnstiles. At each gate, riot police pushed back the crowds with their batons and riot shields, but in a move which subsequently received widespread condemnation, riot police also started dispersing tear gas and pepper spray indiscriminately. Men, women, children, and even police officers and stewards were affected by numerous tear gas attacks, which were directed at individuals regardless of their complicity in deviancy, age, or whether they lived with disabilities. Despite this, little was done to resolve most attacks and robberies in the vicinity. A similar situation affected lost Liverpool and Real Madrid fans, who were directed to a northwest entry that also became affected by bottlenecks, crime, and police brutality. Ultimately, with approximately 15,000 still outside the stadium, it became apparent that the match could not safely kick off at 9 p.m. Thus, it was delayed initially by 15 minutes before it eventually commenced at 9:37 p.m. Despite the fact some fans had still not been allowed in, some did not enter the stadium until halftime. In total, 75,000 people were in attendance. However, more than 2,700 Liverpool fans who had purchased legitimate tickets, many of whom were affected by muggings, were turned away. The match itself passed without incident, which saw Real Madrid win 1-0, courtesy of a 59th minute Vinicius Jr. goal. Concerned over possible hooliganism from the Merseyside fans, riot police guarded the Liverpool side. No trouble was reported, though whether riot police presence was necessary remains controversial. And then, things aren't even over, because now we have the post-match. Crowd congestion still proved problematic post-match. Some gates remained locked, with footage showing fans being forced to climb over them in order to leave. As before, bottlenecks emerged as paths proved too narrow, especially in the subway. But as spectators of both sides entered the streets, they realized that armed local gangs were waiting for them. Suddenly, various fans were attacked and mugged in what the UFC fighter Paddy Pimblett described as something like the film The Purge. According to Pimblett, he witnessed armed gangs totaling 30 men committing widespread muggings, including pinning victims down and slicing the straps of valuables like handbags and watches. Former Liverpool player and LFC TV pundit Jason McAteer's account was especially harrowing. His wife Lucy and elder son Harry attempted to leave via bus, only to find it had moved because gangs had tried to throw bricks at it. Suddenly, Lucy was ambushed from behind by 5 men who mugged her for her watch. Harry attempted to retaliate, only for the 5 men to viciously attack him in an attempt to obtain his phone. Ultimately, with the help from some Real Madrid fans, both managed to escape with only minor injuries and trauma. Several of McAteer's friends were also attacked while heading back to the metro. Those traveling to the nearby train stations and car parks were the most likely target of the gangs. Patrice Ribeiro, head of the police union's Synergy officers, stated the situation went out of control as local deviants were soon joined by international and other ultra-violent groups. The criminals showed no mercy and attacked vulnerable groups like children and old and disabled people in rampant attacks that saw many lose valuables, clothes, and other belongings. Ted Morris, the chairman of the Liverpool Disabled Supporters Association, stated many Liverpool fans with disabilities were traumatized by gas attacks, near-human crushes, and post-match attacks. Many women and girls also found themselves targeted for SA by local youths. At least 2 police officers confirmed this, with one recalling women being groped and having their handbags stolen. Morris also reported at least 1 disabled woman was SA'd at the event. Other individuals were taken to hospital with stab wounds. Most accounts shared one factor: there was hardly any police and steward activity as these crimes were being committed. As a Real Madrid statement summarized, most fans were left abandoned and defenseless, with Morris claiming most disabled fans received no support from relevant authorities and ended up completely vulnerable to the gangs. Ribeiro recalled that the policing became difficult because as soon as officers arrived, the perpetrators started merging seamlessly with the fans, but some accounts also accused police officers of failing to take action despite witnessing criminal acts. In total, 238 people were injured while 105 were arrested. The majority of incidents occurred in St. Denis. The fact that no fatalities occurred was considered miraculous by most sources, as tragedies almost seemed inevitable under the circumstances. Now, after all of this, I thank you so much for sticking with me. I'm probably going to speed it up just a little bit in post to make it a little shorter because we've been talking about this for quite a while, but the investigation and the deleted lost CCTV footage. The inadequate crowd control provisions before and after the final received near universal condemnation, with the usage of pepper spray and tear gas triggering significant scorn. Comparison to the Hillsborough disaster were made, with some who were in attendance on that fateful day stating it brought back terrible flashbacks. Liverpool, Real Madrid, and the British government soon demanded answers to why fans were left completely vulnerable to potential human crushes, excessive police force, and local gangs. Following the match, the UEFA and the French government defended police actions at the event. The initial explanation of the game's delay was the late arrival of fans, which was then changed to a security issue. UEFA and the later claimed that between 30,000 and 50,000 Liverpool supporters had shown up without tickets or were affected by an extensive counterfeit ticket scheme that affected 70% of supporters. France's Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin, primarily blamed Liverpool's paper tickets for the large-scale fraud, something he believed only affected English clubs. Notably, Liverpool's official tickets were paper-based, while Real Madrid fans were allocated electronic ones. Darmanin also insisted that the tear gas, while excessively dispersed, was necessary to ensure human crushes did not materialize at the gates, and also accused some supporters of attacking stewards. Sports Minister Emilie Odia Castera criticized stadium organization and Liverpool for failing to properly direct its fans to the ground. These comments provoked anger from Liverpool and their fans, with some claiming that it resembled the victim blaming following the Hillsborough disaster. While tear gas usage could certainly be justified on otherwise rowdy supporters, numerous accusations arose that gas and pepper spray were indiscriminately used on innocent and vulnerable individuals. Additionally, Liverpool fans' behavior was defended by Merseyside police, who deemed it exemplary considering the dangerous situation involved. Further, an investigation by the New York Times concerning illegitimate tickets questioned Darmanin's 30,000 to 40,000 claim, stating that its own investigation into official numbers found only 2,589 tickets were actually denied. While it notes that this still exceeds the typical level of previous finals, there is also the possibility that the numbers include some tickets that were repeatedly denied. All this led to This Is Anfield to accuse UEFA of forging and a cover-up. On the 4th of June, UEFA officially apologized to Liverpool and Real Madrid fans, subsequently promising an independent review. A French Senate hearing was also conducted. The UCLF 22 independent review was chaired by Dr. Tiago Brandoa Rodriguez and focused on the failure of crowd control measures and the police force. Published on the 13th of February 2023, it raised points already discussed in this article, like the unnecessary RERB closure and the inexperienced stewardship. Security concerns with ASP3 were raised pre-game, and it was also discovered that UEFA produced a document about the late fans' situation days before match day. The review declared the fake ticket narrative as reprehensible. Furthermore, the panel agreed that the Liverpool supporters were unfairly treated by police and criticized the poor rationale for utilizing tear gas and other excessive force. During its investigation, it found riot police had based their crowd control approach on 2 events involving supposed hooliganism from English fans: the England-Russia violence that occurred in Marseille during Euro 2016, and shockingly, the Hillsborough disaster. And was found in the Hillsborough inquest, the 96 victims of the disaster were unlawfully killed following lapses in police and crowd control measures, with Liverpool fans absolved of blame. Thus, this revelation triggered outrage, as it subsequently meant police control was based on the debunked narrative that Hillsborough was caused by hooliganism. The review also wanted to examine the footage captured by the 260 Stade de France CCTV cameras, considering most incidents surrounding human crushes, gang crime, and police force were reported at the stadium. The recordings would help verify the incidents and potentially justify the riot police's methods in avoiding excessive pressure on the turnstiles. It is known that the head of institutional relations, Erwan Le Prévost, had viewed what he defined as extremely violent surveillance images. However, more controversy arose when it was revealed the CCTV footage no longer existed. According to Prévost, during the French Senate hearing, the needed a public prosecutor to request the tapes be seized. As this did not occur, the footage lingered until a week following the event before it was automatically deleted. The news provoked further outrage on how critical evidence was left to self-destruct, with some also claiming the incident was very similar to stolen CCTV footage of Hillsborough. Additionally, the independent review concluded that the UEFA and the French legal system failed to properly request the tapes, and also criticized Stade de France for not properly storing the records. Other CCTV sources were examined. On the 11th of June, the Daily Mail reported that whereas Metro line footage had already been deleted, surveillance recording from the Société Nationale des Chemins de Fer Français SCNF, I'm really bad at French, guys, sorry, cameras had been securely recovered. The SCNF and the Régie Autonome des Transports Parisiens, RATP, were the primary train operators harnessed for the final, and may have recorded delinquency as people made their way from RER stations to Stade de France. SNCF, in particular, had placed cameras near the Stade de France. According to a source from the Babinji Judiciary, the records were obtained a few days prior and may have captured additional examples of unlawful violence from police, fans, and gangs. But during a French Senate hearing, Sylvie Charles of SCNF brand Transilien revealed that the SCNF recordings were partially lost, as they had begun to auto-delete on the 1st of June when the footage was finally requested. Meanwhile, RATP's Philippe Martin revealed his company also received a late request for footage retention. Unlike SCNF, which kept its videos for beyond the usual 3 days in response to trouble reported at St. Denis, RATP had no compulsion to retain its footage. Thus, all RATP's surveillance recordings are completely lost. The surviving SCNF footage did capture some minor incidents, but nothing of significant importance. The independent review ultimately cleared Liverpool fans of any blame for the crowd control fiasco. Instead, it partially held that the FFF and French police responsible, but concluded UEFA, as event organizers, was the most accountable. It declared that it was exceptionally fortunate nobody passed away, as the lapses in routing, crowd control measures, stewardship, and policing meant fans from both clubs were at risk. Similarly, the French Senate stated in its Champion League final and unavoidable fiasco report that not only had police used excessive force on innocent and otherwise vulnerable people, it had also failed to tackle the gang attacks that occurred before and after the match. The independent review published 21 recommendations for safety and security management at future UEFA finals. Among them included host stadiums being designed with security and crowd guidance in mind, that crowd control measures are focused on guaranteeing security over anticipating disorderly conduct, additional safe accessibility services for disabled fans, ensuring that all relevant CCTV footage is properly retained, and mandating electronic tickets. A year following the incidents, UEFA published its latest major event security plan. UEFA also announced that all 19,618 Liverpool fans who purchased official club tickets and some Real Madrid supporters would be entitled to full refunds. This was rejected by Real Madrid, who deemed all its fans were eligible for refunds, among other compensation, as they felt everyone was affected by the delays and security lapses. UEFA and the FFF had additionally been criticized for the last-minute demands to redact key evidence and hide the identities of involved staff from the review report. In September 2023, former UEFA Operations Director Sharon Burkhalter-Lau alleged some UEFA provided evidence was completely false. She claimed the organization had manipulated evidence so that it blamed UEFA events and protected the interests of its safety and security unit, which had failed to attend meetings regarding the final safety measures. UEFA later denied the allegations, including rubbishing whether its actions were motivated by the friendship between its president, Alexander Griffin, and the unit's leader, Zelichko Pavlika. So as to the availability of this footage, because of the failure to obtain the recordings, the Stade de France CCTV footage captured that day will remain permanently irrecoverable and provides a key lesson regarding the importance of security tape retention and preservation. A similar fate befell the RATP Metro and most SNCF footage, the surviving clips from the later having not yet been publicly released. Nevertheless, the numerous fan recordings plus tapes captured by media outlets and other official sources that have since been shared on social media platforms like YouTube help to illustrate the chaotic nature outside Stade de France from various perspectives. Alright guys, back to normal speed. Sorry about that. That one got a little bit away from me. That one's a pretty long one, but it was very interesting, was it not? So in a lot of cases, we have lost media that gets lost due to incompetence, due to just, nobody thinking things mattered, and ultimately because whatever the piece of media was not profitable. And honestly, in this case, there's similarities, but there's kind of a more malicious tinge to it. This lost media of footage of essentially an atrocity and a complete failure on part of both an organization, a city, and its law enforcement is due to a couple of things. First and foremost, incompetence. Like 100%, they even knew some of these issues ahead of time and chose not to do anything about them. And then 2, greed. Rather than media being unprofitable, and that's why it's lost. So the media itself in this case not being profitable, but they went ahead with this event despite the fact that they were completely unprepared for it. Out of greed. These championships bring a lot of money to whatever city, whatever stadium they take place in. And they wanted that. And then when it all came back to bite them, they took steps, it seems, to ensure that there was not enough footage to fully come at them, even though in the end there kind of was. So it seems like they actively tried not to allow media of their incompetence to see the light of day. And honestly, my final thought in all of this is that, honestly, the shenanigans that happened involving the participants, the spectators of a football, aka soccer match, are far more interesting than the game itself. I'm not saying that in a good way, but like anytime there's a story about soccer, about something that's like newsworthy besides like winning the championship, it's always the bad behavior concerning pedestrians, whether they are fans or in this case local gangs. It seems that just soccer initiates violence not from the players themselves, but rather the people, the spectators, and the people surrounding the spectators. Like the fact that they had to have 2 separate entrances so that Real Madrid fans and Liverpool fans didn't have to interact. Like that's a lot of bad blood. And I mean, yes, we see that in other sports, but not nearly to the extent we seem to in soccer. And as an American, I just find soccer very boring, so I don't fully understand why people in other countries get so worked up about it, but I don't like sports in general, so I don't know. Alright guys, our final piece today is Fire Emblem, partially lost early 4-coma manga anthologies based on the tactical role-playing game franchise from 1994 to 2002. Now, if you're like me, your first introduction to Fire Emblem was through Super Smash Bros., where you had Marth and you had Roy, and you had no idea what they were from because those games at the time were Japan exclusives. Now we do get Fire Emblem over here. They're exceptionally popular, but apparently, back in the early 2000s and the 90s, this was all completely a Japanese thing. Since its inception, though, the Fire Emblem franchise has received a number of manga adaptations, most of which have been from 4-comas. The series of 4-comas, Fire Emblem 4-coma Manga Theater, was released between 1994 and 1997, with its first 4 volumes covering the Arcania Saga, and the last two covering the fourth game, Genealogy of the Holy War. The franchise would continue to receive manga adaptations until 2005, when Fire Emblem Champion Sword ended its run. However, it started receiving manga adaptations again in 2012 with the release of a short manga adaptation of the then newly released Fire Emblem Awakening. Meanwhile, after the release of the Binding Blade 4 Komas in 2002, production of the 4 Koma manga came into an abrupt halt for 13 years until 2015 when Fire Emblem Awakening 4 Koma Kings was released. Though 5 years prior, there was also an additional 2 4 Komas made for the memorial book Arcania Chronicle. And if you could follow all that, you understand what's going on better than I do right now. The majority of the 4 Koma anthologies are known to have had a sillier and light-hearted tone than the usual dark tone seen throughout most of the Fire Emblem games, though some of the ones are known to have mildly sexual material included, mostly seen in the 4 Koma manga theater, such as Lena attempting to undress herself in one of them, and Keita stunning enemy soldiers by exposing her underwear in another. Games released after Binding Blade and before New Mystery of the Emblem, as well as Three Houses, never got any official 4 Koma adaptations whatsoever. So what's lost? Well, though 4 Koma adaptations of games released during the 2010s are well accounted for, and A Day in the Life is currently ongoing as of 2017, the early ones based on the Arcania and Judgral sagas, as well as the Binding Blade, have been long out of print, with the vast majority having yet to be uploaded on the internet in their entirety. The main reason being that all of the 4 Koma adaptations released at the time were doujins made by fans of the series. Due to their obscurity, not much information is currently known of either of them. However, used copies of the early 4 Koma mangas are still being sold online via various Japanese sites. There is currently no estimate as to how many 4 Komas have been made between 1994 and 2002. So far, 3 of the known Thracia 776 4 Koma manga were scanned in their entirety by Flare Habanero, and were later uploaded to the Internet Archive by various users between March 4th and September 24th of 2019, whereas the fourth one, which is a sequel to the first Thracia 776 4 Koma manga theater, has not been uploaded online as of yet. A Twitter user at Binding Manga also scanned, translated, and uploaded several 4 Komas from the Binding Blade gag battle, with the most recent being uploaded on June 1st of 2020. Also, a little-known Twitter bot at Nintendo4Koma has continuously been scanning posts of several early Fire Emblem 4 Komas in rotation, but all it posts are the same several 4 Komas, as the bot itself hasn't been updated for a very long time. Asinoctali, I don't know, possibly an active Genealogy of the Holy War fan site, also hosts translations of several 4 Komas, albeit mostly in French. Consisting of those from one of the Genealogy of the Holy War gag battle volumes and Genealogy of the Holy War gag paradise. Though the actual page amount for both of them are unknown, the rest are scattered across the internet, most notably on Twitter. A huge chunk of available 4 Komas are currently preserved in a mega folder sorted into different folders. One 4 Koma manga, Yaruze Fire Emblem, which is centered around Genealogy of the Holy War 4 Komas, was most likely not scanned and uploaded online at all, and surviving copies are extremely hard to come by. A My Figure Collection user, I'm not even going to try, I've mispronounced too many names, is known to have 1 copy of the manga in his possession. However, he was last active on that site around June of 2021, and his card website link is defunct. On December 15th of 2021, Lost Media Wiki user Technicolor Nick announced that they have bought 1 copy of each of all 6 volumes of Fire Emblem 4 Koma Manga Theater, Thracia 776 4 Koma Manga Theater 2, Binding Blade 4 Koma Gag Battle, and Yaruze Fire Emblem, and will be scanning and uploading them in their entirety. Once the aforementioned manga have been uploaded online, This leaves the Genealogy of the Holy War 4 Coma Gag Battle series, Genealogy of the Holy War Gag Paradise, and the Binding Blade 4 Coma Manga Kingdom, the only ones to not be uploaded in full. And apparently there's another update that Yaruze Fire Emblem was eventually uploaded in its entirety for the first time by Technicolor on January 10th of 2022. So yeah, not a whole lot of spiciness in this one, guys, though to be fair, I'm used to Fire Emblem having zero sexy content, so the fact that they somehow kind of were like, oh yeah, there's a little bit in this one, I guess that's why it was kind of labeled as like, yeah, no, this one's a little bit spicier on the Lost Media Wiki. I'll be honest with all of you, I followed about none of that. So even though I was reading that directly from the Lost Media Wiki article, I don't know what's missing and what isn't. So that's on me. Maybe you could follow it. But like if you've got a bunch of old Fire Emblem manga at home from back in the day, who knows? Maybe you need to upload that shit. Alright guys, at number 5 we have Uncle Walt, a lost unauthorized Disney short film from 1964. Uncle Walt is a short 1964 cartoon by then student Robert Swarth as part of the UCLA Animation Workshop. The only known mass public screening of the short took place in June 1972 at the American Film Institute as part of a presentation titled 50 Years of American Animation. As to the plot of this film, the short begins with images of Walt Disney at various ages, followed by a slow pan across a graveyard full of headstones of Perry the Squirrel and her family, a reference to Disney's 1957 live-action fantasy, Perry, a film based on Felix Salten's 1938 novel of the same name. A very early-style Mickey and Minnie Mouse, various racist caricatures, and toilet humor. After this, a sequence featuring the female centaurs from Fantasia working in a red light district with Goofy as their pimp, and another scene in which various disturbing scenes from Disney films, including a scene from Snow White in which the queen transforms into a hag, are shown, all while a group of rabbit children look on in horror. The final images in the short depict the 7 dwarfs from Snow White gathering around Mickey Mouse in a Mouseka mausoleum, worshipping him in a scene reminiscent of the one seen in the original 1937 production. So, as to the status of this piece, for a time, a rumor circulated that the short was actually produced by Disney employees in 1952, but this was quickly debunked as it contains references to the film Perry, which was released in 1957. Uncle Walt has not been publicly screened since 1972, and it is unknown if anyone other than Swarth has a copy of the film. Again, this one is very interesting because it's very reminiscent of one that would not be on this series because it's a more well-known piece of Lost Media that was called like Mickey Mouse Goes to Vietnam, and that was lost for years until it was finally found. And I think that like this one probably over time, there's a copy of this somewhere. And as much as Disney likes to keep stuff like this, under wraps, especially with things like the Mickey Mouse Steamboat Willie copyright ending here soon and all that, I feel like this one will surface in the next few years. I think it's inevitable. I think people want stuff like this, just because it was someone kind of taking a look and poking fun at Disney all the way back in the 60s, I really do think this one is still out there and that one day we will find it. Mostly I just want to see Goofy dressed up as a pimp. Face down, ass up, that's the way we like to yuck. So at number 5, today's spicy piece is Gore, a lost unreleased Gore Vidal biopic from 2017. This piece is one of several pieces of film that became lost because they starred Kevin Spacey. Now you probably already have heard about the much more well-known piece of Lost Media, which was Kevin Spacey's scenes from All the Money in the World, the J.R. Getty biopic that they refilmed his scenes after the 2017 sexual misconduct allegations that came against Kevin Spacey. But earlier in 2017, Kevin Spacey starred in Netflix's upcoming film entitled Gore. The film was essentially a biopic on the life of the American writer, screenwriter, and public intellectual Gore Vidal, the writer of what is recognized as the first major novel about a transgender woman in 1968's Myra Breckinridge. It would be the first feature film about their life, and many documentaries had been made about them years prior. It would take set in Italy and would be filmed in Vidal's villa in Ravallo, Italy. The film was directed by Michael Hoffman and was produced by Andy Patterson and Netflix. Months later, in light of the allegations, the film was announced to be cancelled. So if you didn't hear about these allegations, on October 29, 2017, 3 weeks after the production of Gore had wrapped up, and in light of the #MeToo movement happening during the time, actor Anthony Rapp had approached BuzzFeed News in June of that year, revealing revelations about Kevin Spacey and how Spacey made unwanted and non-consensual sexual advancements and actions towards them when Rapp was 14 years old, and Spacey, on the other hand, was 26. With Rapp coming forward on their indecent experience with Spacey, this caused a butterfly effect that week in which several more men came forward about Spacey's harassment behavior and inappropriate actions toward them, with some disclosing that they were minors when Spacey harassed them. With more and more allegations and revelations coming to light, on Friday that week, which was November 3rd, 2017, a spokesperson from Netflix announced that they will be cutting off relationship ties with the actor, thus also announcing the cancellation of the release of the project Spacey was involved with, which included the popular Netflix series House of Cards, as well as Gore. While that alone would be enough of an explanation for why this project never saw the light of day, there's also some upsettingly coincidental, off-putting similarities between the actor playing Vidal and some actual events of Vidal himself's life. So while the allegations against Spacey were definitely a reason why Gore would be unreleased, some articles suggest that this might have just been a factor too, as Gore Vidal, the person whom the film was about, was also involved and have done various inappropriate acts towards minors.
These are my only friends. Grown-up nerds like Gore Vidal, and even he's kissed more boys than I ever will.
Girls, Lisa. Boys kiss girls.
It was also allegedly apparent that Vidal was into younger men, given that Spacey was given the role to portray Vidal in the now unreleased film. It is off-putting and weirdly uncomfortable to see the similarities in evoking one another's actions. In a 2018 article by BuzzFeed News, they managed to obtain a script on Gore. In the article, it revealed a couple of instances in Gore's script where the film portrayed Vidal's alleged perverted acts with a young fan. In the script, Vidal's neighbor, Anthony, stumbled upon a letter from a young fan and aspiring writer named Jamie. Anthony later wrote a falsified letter that invited Jamie and his girlfriend to visit Vidal's house and convinced Vidal to let them in his house. The script was suggested to emphasize how attractive Jamie was and tried to begin to seduce Jamie. In another scene where Vidal invited Jamie to Rome, Vidal encountered Rudolph, Vidal's acquaintance, who would also encounter Marcella and Petra, both of which are hired exhibitionists by Rudolph, who started to dance in front of Jamie and Vidal. Later in the scene, it was revealed that both Marcella and Petra were male, as Rudolph stripped both of them, revealing their genitals. The scene would later go on as Vidal suggested Jamie was hard, which he had. The filmmakers of the film had stated no intentions behind Spacey's casting, and their main reason was Spacey's performance in House of Cards, and since the film was made before more allegations to Spacey came to light, it is unfortunate how unironic the similarities between Spacey's performance as Vidal and Vidal himself is. But as it stands, no available footage of the film exists. There are a few photos available, but Netflix reportedly lost $39 million on canceling this film, and since it had been in limbo with no company distributing the film as of yet, it will be very unlikely to be released for years to come. Many actors of the film had stated interest on releasing the film, however, not to support Spacey's actions, but to see how the film was meant to be seen. And I, for one, disagree entirely on that point. I don't think this film should be released, and it's not about censorship, it's about the fact that in many ways, you cannot separate the actor from their art. Before it came to light what a creep Spacey was, I loved the film and loved the soundtrack from Beyond the Sea, which was the biopic Spacey made on Bobby Darin, and he sang all the great Bobby Darin songs. Artificial Flowers, Mac the Knife, Somewhere Beyond the Sea, Splish Splash, the I Was Taking a Bath song, and I loved the movie. I had the soundtrack. I haven't listened to it in years because of that. It ruined it for me. I can no longer enjoy that soundtrack because the voice I'm hearing is the voice of someone who abused minors, and I just cannot. Even though I've already paid for the soundtrack, no more money is going into Spacey's pocket, I just can't do it. It ruined it, and I just don't, I don't think, just like they replaced him in the scenes for the Getty biopic, they would have to remake this entire movie again without him for me to be okay with them releasing it, because again, he's a creep, and we should not support that. A phenomenally talented actor for sure, but that does not in any way excuse his actions. So in my opinion, this one needs to stay lost. Our number 5 and spicy piece of media today is Le Coucher de la Marée, partially found French pornographic short film from 1896. That's some vintage smut right there. Le Coucher de la Marée, Bedtime for the Bride, is a silent film supposedly shot in 1896. It is believed to be the first pornographic film ever made. All that remains of the 7-minute film is the first minute and 30 seconds, which the Wikipedia article, as of August 8, 2014, states, includes merely foreplay. The film was directed by the mysterious early filmmaker Albert Kirchner under the pseudonym Liard, and made for the photographer Eugene Pirot. It consisted of actress and cabaret performer Louise Willy undressing while an unknown actor sits in the room with her. According to an archived article from the English newspaper The Observer, the first minutes were found in a vault in the Centre National de la Cinématographie near Paris in about 1996. Now, despite being known as the first pornographic movie, few references to this film can be found, and the Internet Movie Database lists several movies with the same title from about the same time. It is likely these are foreign release dates for the same film. Ironically, Albert Kirchner, in collaboration with film historian Michel Kosiak, produced the 12-scene Passion du Christ, The Passion of Christ, in 1897, which also appears to be lost. This makes Kirchner not only the first pornographer, but also the first director to depict Jesus in a film. Something tells me this guy would love the Hamlet 2 scene with the song Rock Me Sexy Jesus. To me, this one's interesting because I just can't wrap my brain around whether or not I believe that it makes sense that the first pornographic film ever has been lost, or if I'm shocked that it was lost. I mean, between purity laws, censorship, and all that, it kind of makes sense that this one would go missing, but at the same time, it feels like somebody or a group of people or multiple individuals would have saved this for posterity. Whatever you feel about adult films and video content, it is a huge part. Pornography is a huge part of society, a huge part of culture. It has shaped a lot of things. There's been social norms that have changed. There have been laws that have come into place both to censor and to protect freedom of speech based on this kind of content. So it's interesting to me that the majority of what was only a 7-minute film is gone. It does, again, I've used this term before, but historically significant pornography is a weird term to use, but I think it applies here. Also, the fact that he was also, the Kirchner was also the first person to depict Jesus on film is just also giving me vibes of that lost gay Jesus pornographic film. It's just interesting, early early cinema was a weird business to be in, all right? And I hope someday we find this in a private collection, just so that we know we have it in its entirety. All right, guys, our spicy piece today was recommended by Butterlicious X Muffin and is Friend Me, a partially found, unaired CBS comedy series from between 2012 to 2013. Now, when Butterlicious X Muffin contacted me about this, they said that it was so obscure that it didn't even have an article on the Lost Media Wiki. Well, Butterlicious X Muffin, I'm happy to tell you that it now does, and that some of this has been found, but let's get into that. There is a trigger warning for this one because it does contain references to self-unaliving. In 2012, CBS ordered the pilot episode of Friend Me, a comedy series focusing on two 20-somethings working at the e-commerce marketplace Groupon. The show was created by Alan Kirshenbaum and AJ Segal. Originally planned to premiere during CBS's mid-season of 2012 to 2013, it was announced that the show was canceled due to the self-deletion of Kirshenbaum, and the pilot episode and any other produced episodes were not aired. Friend Me was planned to be about two best friends, Evan and Rob, moving from Bloomington, Indiana to Los Angeles, California to work for Groupon. The show was to star Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Evan and Nicholas Braun as Rob, with Amanda Lund playing the neighbor Amanda Baxter. Parviz China, Dan Adut, and Steve Talley were also announced as cast members. Despite speculation, in a statement to Forbes, Groupon announced that they had no involvement with the show. In May of 2012, it was announced that the show was picked up as a series for CBS's 2012-2013 mid-season lineup. Now, as to the availability, after it was announced the show was canceled, the series was not shown on CBS to burn off the remaining episodes. Because of this, neither the pilot nor any of the unspecified amount of episodes that were produced for the show were shown on TV. However, on December 27th of 2022, the pilot episode was uploaded onto the Internet Archive along with hundreds of other TV pilots that were taken from a terminated YouTube channel, TV Tunnel. Unfortunately, the pilot has since been removed from the Internet Archive, but it has since been posted elsewhere on the internet. There is a link to the pilot on the Lost Media Wiki article. I will include that in the video description. It is very unfortunate the circumstances surrounding why this piece became lost, because one, not only does that mean there was a unnecessary loss of human life, but also this series seemed like it could have been something pretty fun. I haven't watched the pilot yet, but just given who is in it and the general premise, I would have been excited to see this show. However, I guess the pilot will just have to do. Thank you, Butterlicious X Muffin, for your suggestion. So today's piece of spicy media is actually also our viewer requested piece. Again, this one was suggested by Simon the Remix Guy, and Simon the Remix Guy suggested Joy Junction, a partially found TBN Christian children's show from the mid-1980s. Just know this one is rated NSFW and NSFL for the discussion of schmornography, cannibalism, and the exploitation of children. Now, Joy Junction is a 1980s Christian-themed television show hosted by the host Sheriff Don, set at the fictional village of Joy Junction, along with the town's residents, Mrs. Peterson, the professor, Ron, and his puppet Marty. In the show, the children of Joy Junction engage in many challenging games while learning valuable lessons from the Bible, including solo performances from the singers and a small segment of Ron and Marty. The show aired on the Christian television network throughout the mid-1980s before it was syndicated on several other children's television blocks, like Kids Club from 1993 to 2005 and Smile. The cast list of Joy Junction was Don McAllister as Sheriff Don, Forrest Padley as the Professor, Al DeSanto as Papillion, David Brantley as Whittler Dan and Jungle Bob, Les Padley as Deputy Les, Ronald Brown as Ron and the Puppet Marty, Sarah Edens and Darcy Wilson as the soloists, Jackie McMinn as Mrs. Peterson, and Joseph Smith as Pastor Wilson. Any relation to the prophet Joseph Smith, I wonder? So had I not spoiled it at the beginning of this, I'd probably say now something like, oh my god, why would such a beloved Christian program be in this section of the video? Well, in 2013, the puppeteer Ronald Brown, who had the, role of the ventriloquist, was hit with child schmornography charges, along with documents implying that he, along with Michael Arnett on a chat group he was in, intended on abusing, cooking, and eating children in highly graphic details, including one child Brown met personally while performing at church. Ronald Brown was also charged with traffic violations back in 1998 when the police spotted a pair of boys' underwear in the passenger seat of his vehicle, but got off clean when he told the authorities that they were for his puppets. Before his eventual prison sentence, Brown was known to perform puppet shows at the congregation he attends, and often held pizza parties with children at his home. He has since been labeled as a sex offender and is prohibited from seeing minors or using a computer with online services. So what does that mean for the availability of Joy Junction? Well, the show's current whereabouts are unknown, as the tapes of the show may have been demolished after the Ron Brown case went wildfire, and nowadays only exist as 2 surviving episodes and many clips uploaded onto YouTube. Since April of 2021, 11 more episodes of Joy Junction have been uploaded onto YouTube. A commercial starring characters from the show included physical copies of Joy Junction, as well as Becky's Barn, are available through a $12 donation. No known copies of either tape seem to exist today. So yet again, we have a case of something becoming lost due to the inability for us to separate an artist from their art. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Art is a very personal thing to an artist, and therefore, supporting their art, if they are a bad person, is in a way supporting their negative behavior. I made a similar argument when we were talking about lost pieces of Kevin Spacey media in a previous video. And while my opinions on how the Christian church educates and may or may not quote-unquote brainwash young people through their programming, that's not what I'm going to get in here today. I want to believe that at the very least, the creators of this show had the best intentions, even if it was with 1980s sensibilities, and something that was meant to be wholesome is forever tarnished by the horrific actions of just someone who the show had no clue was a monster. That a show that was a labor of love for so many people in an attempt to educate and perform for children was forever had its reputation sullied by one person is truly amazing and truly saddening. But again, I don't believe it's right to go, oh well, it's fine, he wasn't doing any of that stuff on the show. No, you cannot separate the artist from their art, except in very specific cases where it's like the art was definitely just if the art itself is objectionable, but was a product of its time. Again, I don't want to get into too big of a philosophical debate in this video. There are certain times you can, but I feel like this performer is just best left forgotten. It's just unfortunate that the work of so many other people must be forgotten because of that. Alright guys, today's spicy piece of media is Jiminy Cricket and Tinkerbell, a lost pornographic Disney pencil sketch, existence unconfirmed, late 1950s to early 1960s. So, Jiminy Cricket and Tinkerbell are Disney characters who originally debuted in the Walt Disney Productions Pinocchio in 1940 and Peter Pan in 1953, respectively. Initially, supporting characters, both would become among Disney's biggest mascots alongside Mickey Mouse. However, some of Disney's top animators, including his 9 old men, supposedly disliked the direction of Tinkerbell's character following Peter Pan's release. In retaliation, an alleged short pencil sketch that depicted Tinkerbell and Jiminy Cricket engaging in sexual intercourse was created without Disney Board's approval or knowledge. Now, a bit of background to this. Jiminy Cricket first appeared in the 1940 Disney film Pinocchio. His character, based on the talking cricket who was killed by Pinocchio in Carlo Collodi's original 1883 book, The Adventures of Pinocchio, gained extended prominence in the Disney film. Particularly, the Blue Fairy gives him the important role of being Pinocchio's conscience, contributing greatly towards the wooden puppet eventually becoming brave, truthful, and unselfish, despite a few near-fatal mishaps along the way. For this, Pinocchio ultimately becomes a real boy, while Jiminy is awarded a gold official conscience badge by the Blue Fairy. His appearance was the work of Ward Kimball, one of the fabled 9 old men that made up the backbone of Disney's animated team. Jiminy was originally voiced by Cliff Edwards, who also sang the original rendition of When You Wish Upon a Star. Interestingly, Jiminy was originally never planned for Pinocchio, only being incorporated into the film 9 months into its production. Some sources, like the Disney classic, believe Cricket's inclusion as a sidekick was vital to the film's success. I honestly agree, I cannot imagine that film without Jiminy. Another of the 9 old men, Mark Davis, was responsible for Tinkerbell. Tinkerbell, a Pixie adaptation of the titular fairy in the 1904 J.M. Barrie work, Peter Pan, made her debut in the 1953 Disney film of the same name. Initially jealous of Wendy's affection towards Peter, Tink ends up banished from the Lost Boys' hideout by the latter for ordering the Lost Boys to shoot down a flying Wendy. After inadvertently revealing the hideout's location to Captain Hook, Tink redeems herself by saving Peter from a time bomb. She also passes away from this, but Peter's reassurance regarding her importance to him ultimately revives her. In the original film, she spoke a pixie language only a few individuals like Peter could understand. Though neither were the main protagonists of their respective first films, Jiminy Cricket and Tinker Bell would soon be among Disney's most recognizable mascots alongside Mickey Mouse. Jiminy, for instance, starred in numerous educational series, starting with I'm No Fool in 1955, while also being a major character in later films like Mickey's Christmas Carol. Meanwhile, Tinkerbell has become just as synonymous as Mickey Mouse to Disney, having become a hostess for countless Disney media and also starred in her own set of films beginning in 2008. Mae Whitman has since voiced the character. In one Disney comic, Tink is cursed by the same sleeping spell that plagued Snow White, but is revived thanks to a kiss from Jiminy. Now, as to the alleged pencil sketch, a core aspect surrounding Tinkerbell's character is her overall attractive appearance. Actress Margaret Carey was enlisted to provide a visual reference for the character, which subsequently enabled Davis to establish Tink's hourglass shape. However, according to entertainment writer and Disney historian Jim Hill, the apparent sexiness Tink displayed would come into conflict with Disney's future plans for the character. Specifically, Walt and his executives saw Tink's mascot and branding potential, especially as Disneyland came into existence. However, the board mandated that for future appearances, Tink needed to be more brand-friendly in approach. The changes emerged before the 1950s came to a close, with an example apparently being a set of cartoons used to advertise Peter Pan peanut butter. The 9 old men reportedly despised the bastardization of Tinkerbell's character, declaring it an insult to Davis's original creation. The original animation team retaliated in a secretive manner. Supposedly, a silent and colorless pencil sketch lasting around 10 to 15 seconds was created. It showed Tink in a sexual encounter with fellow Disney mascot Jiminy Cricket. You might say Jiminy was letting his conscience be his guide to find her second star to the right and straight on till moaning. I apologize. The work served 2 key purposes. One, as a final lewd tribute to Davis's now iconic character. Hey, we're all about lewd tributes here on this channel, alright? You should check out some of those minis. And 2, to shock newcomers into the Walt Disney feature animation team. This prank typically occurred in a sweatbox scenario, where a new, presumably anxious animator would suddenly be stunned to see the sketch included in their presented work. The sketch and prank were intentionally kept from Disney's higher-ups. If the Mickey and Minnie Mouse sex tape and its aftermath did indeed happen, those responsible for the Tink/Jimmy sketch would likely face similar consequences. It is unknown who conceptualized the sketch. Now, as to the status of this alleged dirty drawing, Hill claims that during interviews with former Walt Disney feature animation personnel, those who remembered seeing it typically began their careers between the late 1950s to the early 1960s. Those who debuted in subsequent decades had heard of the lewd sketch but never witnessed it themselves. There are likely 2 possible reasons behind this. The first, as believed by Hill, is that the original creator left with the sketch following his departure from Disney. Alternatively, Disney officials finally discovered the sketch and consequently ordered its destruction, a la the Mickey Minnie sex tape. Regardless if the sketch was indeed real, it no longer exists within Disney facilities and is now lost. Hill insisted that several former Disney animators affirmed the sketch's legitimacy. However, he did not list any in his original 10th of April 2003 Y4 post. He also discussed the Popeye and Betty Boop sex tape, which we have mentioned previously on the channel, but where this and the Mickey Minnie tapes were detailed in concrete sources like Walt Disney Hollywood's Dark Prince, and The Fleischer Story, the same does not apply to the Tink/Jiminy sketch. Most online discourse typically refers back exclusively to Hill's Y4 post. Consequently, it has led some to question the authenticity of Hill's claim, with some alleging that his columns often rely on rumors and otherwise questionable sources. Therefore, the sketch's existence will remain unconfirmed unless a seemingly more reliable source can authenticate it. This may prove especially difficult as the alleged pencil sketch is relatively obscure among the wider Lost Media community, especially in comparison to other animated sex tapes. However, even a cursory glance on the internet will show you all kinds of Jiminy Cricket x Tinkerbell Rule 434 stuff, so if you're into that, fear not, you can find it. Okay guys, since I kind of did the ad pitch at the beginning of this video, we're just going to get right into today's final spicy piece of lesser known Lost Media. Please understand that this one is tagged as NSFW and NSFL due to its discussion of disturbing sexual topics, such as sexual and criminal topics, such as non-consensual sex, sex with family members, and sex with people that are under the age of consent. If these things are a trigger for you, this would be the time to stop the video and go back and watch some of my earlier videos. This is the warning. So yeah, at our final spicy piece today, we have Jen, which is partially found controversial videos from a Canadian YouTuber from the years of 2012 to 2021. Jen, full name Jen Ketchison, was a Canadian YouTuber who rose to infamy due to her disturbing and highly controversial video advocating for pedophilia. Over the span of her time on YouTube, she made vlogs on self-improvement, guilt admission, just normal vlogs, and channel updates. So, standard YouTube stuff. Out of her most egregious videos, one of her earliest videos has her admitting to having her pet rabbits put down because she didn't think they would have as good a life after she got rid of them to put herself first instead of them. Well, that's kind of shitty, so instead of just rehoming her rabbits, she just had them put down. That's kind of a crap thing to do. Another one of her videos had her advocating for incest as long as it is between two consenting adults. That's kind of gross. Another had her say that rape isn't as big a deal as it is made out to be. Wow, she should go join all the people on the incel forum for that one. And her most famous video is her advocating for pedophilia, saying that children are just as sexually curious as adults. Ugh. In early 2017, YouTuber Blair White uploaded a video titled "Pedophile YouTubers Explode." We wish. Pedophile YouTubers Exposed, where Blair calls her out. The video later garnered around 915,000 views, must be nice, it causing an influx of attention and hate flooding towards Jen's channel. Also in early 2017, YouTuber Repzion uploaded a video titled "Jen Fails to Understand Predatory Behavior, Live Response Number 4, in which Repzion responds to Jen. The video later garnered around 161,000 views. Now in mid-2017, teen YouTuber Ready to Glare uploaded a video titled "Our Response, Is Incest a Bad Thing?" by Jen, responding to Jen's incest video. That video later garnered 99,000 views. So, later on, Jen's pedophilia video got taken down, and she would later delete all of her videos and her other social media accounts, such as YouTube, leaving only her Tumblr remaining. 5 videos were recovered in their entirety via Lost Media Wiki user Grigio Guy, but these were later taken down following a copyright claim by Jen herself. So, I am in no way going to defend these terrible views by this woman, but the fact that when people re-uploaded her videos and all that, and the fact that she took her videos down and that she gave people that re-uploaded them copyright strikes just goes to show that, if you're gonna have terrible views, that's awful, but stand by them. Don't, or at the very least, make a public apology, which it does not sound like she did. She just tried to hide what she said and then go with, if it disappears, then it never happened. It's like, look, if you have terrible ideas, you have 2 options. You can stand by them, or you can apologize. You can't do neither. You can't sweep them under the rug. Everything is too out there now. You can't hide this stuff anymore. And it sounds like this woman had some pretty gnarly views on things, and but then wouldn't stand by her. If you're gonna take a crap, own your crap. But she would not, and so I think in a way she's already despicable. That makes her more despicable, and that's just my opinion. Clearly, I'm not saying nobody should even try to contact this woman. Nobody should give her any kind of harassment. That is not okay. But I am honestly, I feel disappointed in this person. Not only that they had these terrible views, but that they wouldn't stand by them or actually make a public apology saying, hey, I was wrong. So that's my 2 cents on this one. These are better staying lost. All right, guys, time for that final fifth and spicy piece of media. When I had the idea for the theme of this video, I was worried I wouldn't be able to find a spicy piece. I mean, honestly, they're commercials. How bad could they be, right? These all aired somewhere public, over public airwaves, so how could they possibly be all that bad? Well, I did manage to find one, and it's an obscure one, so it does still fit the theme of this video, and of the series as a whole. So our final piece today is the anti-Duterte advertisement, a lost radio recording of a political attack advertisement from 2016. Antonio Trillanes was a then-elected senator of the Philippines. He served his term from 2007 up until 2019. He currently is a full-time lecturer for public policy at universities in the Philippines. Back in 2016, Trillanes had made a political attack ad, which is an advertisement attacking a political entity, against his then rival, Davao City Mayor, and now then President of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, which aired on the Thursday night of May 5th, 2016 on the channel ABS-CBN, 4 days before the presidential election. There are claims of a radio version of this attack ad that had aired, though no known recordings have been located. Now, for a little bit of background, the 2016 presidential campaign of Rodrigo Duterte, I don't know how to say these names, guys, was announced on November 21st of 2015. He was eventually then elected the 16th president of the Philippines. Duterte's positions were seen to have resonated with older working-class Filipinos, particularly his promise to eliminate the wide-scale drug menace of the country, eliminating corruption, and his harsh stances on crime in Davao City, which he served for more than 22 years. Duterte's campaign also emphasized an anti-establishment tone, accusing political elites based in Manila of not doing much to solve problems in a move that was described as populist. So, as for the advertisement itself, it's a 30-second advertisement showing each of the 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls, criticizing in brief words every respective video clip shown. All of this was meant to make Duterte look just bad. Now, the TV advertisement is not lost. In fact, it was uploaded May 5th of 2016, the same day the ad was aired on Philippine television. Specifically, it aired on Thursday night of May 5th, 2016 on ABS-CBN. Now, the missing part is that some sources claim that the attack ad also aired on competing rival networks GMA and TV5. GMA and TV5 denied ever airing the ad, and it was also reported that the ad was first aired on a radio station before it was aired on ABS-CBN. However, there are no known recordings of the radio version. The advertisement drew criticism from Duterte's supporters on social media. Prior to the airing of the ad, the ABS-CBN Corporation issued a statement that the ad had been reviewed by the Ethics Committee, complied with election laws, and was allowed to air. Later, TV5 refused to air the controversial ad, with the TV5 network stating that the ad had not met the requirements. Now, political advertisements can get pretty out there. This one featured, some pretty unflattering clips, including him doing things like foul language, flipping the bird. Again, it's in a foreign language, so I don't really know how to properly convey it. You can find the video very easily on YouTube or by going to the Lost Media Wiki. But ultimately, this one is just pretty foul for a campaign ad, even if it's against somebody But I have my doubts that this ever aired on the radio, because I feel like there is as much visual, if you look at the video, as there is verbal, but who knows? To me, this one kind of feels almost like a Dewey beats Truman type deal, where the legend of it has even been more, it's like, it'd be great if it was like, oh, they tried to throw this commercial out at the guy via TV, via radio, multiple stations, multiple channels, but he still won. So I almost think the addition of it was on the radio is more just a puff political, piece of propaganda to show that even with all that they tried to do, they could not stop this man from becoming president. I don't think this one exists, honestly, guys, but hey, if you're from the Philippines and you happen to have a recording from the radio, upload it. People are looking for it. Alright, guys, at number 5, our spicy piece for today is Ongebit Piet. And I know I said that wrong, which is a Dutch Sinterklaas live-action TV series that ran from 2007 to 2008. Ontbijt Piet, or the English translation Breakfast Piet, is a Dutch educational Sinterklaas-themed live-action series produced by Endemol and broadcasted by Nickelodeon in the Netherlands. It features characters based on the legend of Zwart Piet, or Black Piet, the mischievous assistant to Sinterklaas, the Dutch Santa Claus, and ran for 2 seasons between late November and early December of 2007 to 2008. Notably, the main characters are portrayed, as is traditional for Zwart Piet, by white actors in full blackface. Likely thanks to this controversial choice, all episodes of the show are currently lost. The show is partially sponsored by Dutch supermarket chain Plus and made to encourage children to eat a healthy breakfast, after studies showed that only 1 in 7 of the country's children did so. It starred Ryan Hoffman as Ongebit Piet, Eva van der Gucht as Schmulpiet, and Bram van der Vlucht, I said that wrong, I know it, as Sinterklaas, aka St. Nicholas. Season 1 is presented as a story-oriented show, while Season 2 takes the form of a news program. The overarching premise is that all of Sinterklaas's Pieten, Dutch plural for Piet, roughly akin to Santa's elves, have become slow and error-prone in their preparations for the upcoming holiday thanks to eating unhealthily. Distressed over the delays, Sinterklaas commissions Ongebit Piet to gather tips from human children on what makes for a good breakfast. These are implemented back at the Pieten's workshop by the cook Schmulpiet with mixed results, as Ongebit Piet doesn't always choose the most nutritious recipes. 28 episodes are confirmed to have been made, along with 2 music videos by DJ Nicky called Jump de Hele Dag, or Jump All Day Long, one containing Zwart Piet, with the other with him removed in order to release it outside of the festive season. Both versions of the song have been officially released as a single. Ongebit Piet itself, however, has not resurfaced in any format, official or otherwise, given that the blackface tradition underpinning it has since become the subject of fierce international controversy. Both the show and associated media appeared to be in the process of being quietly buried. The thing that makes me kind of laugh with this one is that, yes, there have been many cases of media that have been censored over the years due to their inclusion of blackface. However, most of these came from a time when, before, let's be honest, before the civil rights movement. We're talking old Looney Tunes, we're talking the Abraham Lincoln's birthday segment in Holiday Inn. But this educational TV show came out in 2007, which is decades, generations since blackface was considered acceptable. Like the kids watching this show, maybe their grandparents were around in a time where blackface was considered A-okay, but certainly it was taboo by the time these kids' parents would have been around. So whoever greenlit the idea of an educational show involving Santa Claus and his quote-unquote elves, which are displayed in blackface, as a way to get kids to eat healthy, I want to know how that TV pitch went and why nobody went, maybe we do this, but we're just going to remove the makeup. I just think it's kind of funny that this was greenlit in an era where it really shouldn't have been. And then it's like, well, it's trying to be quietly buried. It's like, how did they not see this was going to be the outcome when when it was already taboo. I won't say this one necessarily needs to stay buried, but this one I just found very interesting for the simple fact that it just seems to have been such a poor decision to make it in the first place, and I don't know how it could have been made in good faith, even though by all accounts it seems like it was. It just shows a complete obliviousness to the times that this ever got greenlit, especially in the Netherlands. So now's the time where normally in between the 4th and the 5th, guys, I'd normally do my ad break, but you're all members and patrons, so you already know what I'm about. So in this segment, we're going to do a piece of found media of a piece from a previous video that has been found. So you may remember me talking about the song Everyone Knows That, aka Ulterior Motives, which was the name given to a 17-second snippet of an unidentified song from the 1980s or 90s that it was uploaded to the website, song identification website, What's That Song, in 2021 by Spanish user Carl92. So Carl stated that he speculated it was left over from a video audio clip when he was learning how to capture audio, but, Carl was being a little, Carl92 was being a little sneaky because we have discovered the actual, source of the video, or the song, I mean. Well, the video that the song is in. A lead was found on Reddit by user OneTruth that it could have been composed by Christopher St. Booth. Now, Christopher Booth created music for pornographic films, and then user South Pole Ball discovered the video Angels of Passion from 1986, and at the 1 hour, 7 minute, and 31 second mark during a hardcore sex scene, the song starts to play. Carl92 just used a snippet where you couldn't hear the moaning. But yeah, this one has officially been found in a place that people really didn't expect. So, if you, but I can say that, if you're a fan of Lost Media and Bush, then you know what? This is the find for you. If you look in the comments section, I will include a link to the Reddit thread that has all the links you need to enjoy this song in whatever way you want to. Alright guys, as spicy as that piece of Lost Media, now found media was, it's time for our spicy media. At number 5, we have Ian Brady's Briefcases, Lost Personal Documents of Moore's Murderer, 1963 to 2017. This is labeled not safe for life due to its discussion of murders, so if that's not your bag, you can always click on over to the Reddit thing and enjoy yourself some nice everyone knows that action. You've been warned. Between 1963 and 1965, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley committed some of the most notorious crimes in British history. Dubbed the Moors Murders, the couple were convicted in 1966 of murdering 5 children, burying 4 of the victims in Saddleworth Moor. Brady would ultimately become Britain's longest-serving prisoner until his death on May 15, 2017. Since then, multiple attempts have been made to retrieve Brady's briefcases containing his personal documents, with speculation that the documents may reveal the location of Keith Bennett's body. So what's this all about? Well, both Ian Brady and Myra Hindley had troubled past to them becoming a couple. Brady had a history of committing petty crimes since his teenage years and was also accused of animal abuse, something he continually denied. By the early 1960s, he had become obsessed with the Nazis and the atrocities they committed. Meanwhile, Hindley was born into a physically abusive and neglectful family. Her father expected her to be as tough as him, and this resulted in her using violence to resolve issues from a young age. She ended up working for the same company that Brady did, and she became obsessed with him, ultimately becoming a couple by 1962. Brady would then indoctrinate Hindley regarding Nazism to the extent that she changed her appearance to look more Aryan and thus to please Brady. It was on July 12, 1963 that they committed their first murder. She offered a 16-year-old girl named Pauline Reed a lift in a borrowed van before requesting her assistance in retrieving a lost glove somewhere in Saddleworth Moor. After arriving at their destination, Hindley told Reed that Brady, who had arrived on the moors via motorcycle, that he would help with the search and instructed her to follow him into the moors. There, Brady would rape Reed before nearly decapitating her, threw 2 slices into her throat and then burying her body in the moor. Later that same year, on November 23rd, the couple offered a 12-year-old John Kilbride a lift home in a Ford Anglia, with the promise of providing him a bottle of sherry. Then they requested his assistance in retrieving a lost glove on the moor. I don't really understand this, guys. Why, you lost your glove on the moor and you want a stranger to help you find it? Brady would then S.A. Kilbride before strangling him with a piece of string, and then he too his body was buried in the moor. On the June 16th of 1964, they found 12-year-old Keith Bennett and asked for help loading some boxes into her van with Brady in the back. She again drove to the moor with Brady and Bennett venturing in to retrieve a lost glove. By the time Brady returned, he was carrying a spade. He had essayed Bennett before strangling him with a piece of string and burying his body somewhere in the moor. On Boxing Day the same year, the pair encountered 10-year-old Leslie Ann Downey, who was seemingly alone at a fun fair in Ancoats. They requested her help in taking some shopping to the car, and then to their home at Wardlebrook Avenue. Upon arriving at the house, they proceeded to undress, bound, and gag her, and take obscene photos of, and ultimately S.A. and murder her. She was also buried on the moor. Additionally, they took audio recordings and of them torturing and murdering her, and that was found in suitcases Brady had left at Manchester Central Railway on October 16, 1965, along with the obscene photos. A 16-minute recording was played back to a horrified open court. The evidence will never be released by the British court system, as possession of these materials would violate the Serious Crimes Act of 2015. However, a transcript is publicly available. I'll be honest, guys, this one's hard to read. Their final murder would occur on October 6th of 1965, and when they invited 17-year-old Edward Evans back to their home. During this time period, Brady requested Hindley to have her brother-in-law, David Smith, witness the murder, the motive of which was to indoctrinate him into their crimes. After getting Evans relaxed with wine, Brady proceeded to hit Evans 14 times with a hatchet, before strangling him in front of Hindley and Smith. The body was then left in the spare room, with plans for the body to again be buried on the moor. This crime would set about the downfall of the couple. Smith had returned home, horrified at the murder he had witnessed. The following morning, he contacted the police, and Hyde Police Station detailed what he had witnessed to officers. Upon discovering Evans' body, the police arrested Brady on October 11th. Hindley, too, would be arrested. Police then searched Saddleworth Moor, discovering Downey's body on October 16th and Kilbride's on October 21st. On May 6th, Brady was convicted of the murders of Kilbride, Downey, and Evans, with Hindley found guilty of murdering the latter too. They would receive 3 and 2 consecutive life terms, respectively. The couple were not charged with the murders of Reed and Bennett, although the police strongly suspected that they were involved in their disappearances. However, later confessions from both would generate new interest in discovering the bodies of Reed and Bennett, as well as other potential victims. On June 30th, 1987, a long-term search of the moor resulted in the success of finding Reed's body not far from the location of Downey's. Despite repeated searches throughout the years, Bennett's body has never been recovered. Hindley would die age 60 on November 15, 2002. Brady would be diagnosed as a psychopath in 1985 and was sent to Ashworth Hospital. He repeatedly requested to die, even going on a hunger strike starting from 1999. Although he was kept alive via being force-fed, he died on May 15, 2017 of restrictive pulmonary disease, having been England's longest-serving prisoner. Okay, so now that we got through all that, what the hell does this have to do with some briefcases, right? Well, upon Brady's death, interest regarding the contents of 2 locked briefcases owned by the Moor's murderer began to emerge. Aside from helping to document Brady's life, as well as resolve other mysteries surrounding the Moor's murders, the main motivation surrounding the briefcases is that they may contain documents that detail the location of Bennett's body. Likely knowing the intrigue surrounding the briefcases upon his death, Brady requested that the cases be kept stored away by his lawyer, Robin Macon. In 2017, Greater Manchester Police requested a court order to search the contents of the briefcases. This request was denied because there was no potential investigation that could lead to prosecution. Additionally, Keith Bennett's brother Alan wrote to Macon in a plea for him to release the documents. with the belief that said documents may contain clues to the whereabouts of Keith's body. Despite further pleas coming from Alan and the police, Macon is said to have refused all requests and declined to comment on the matter. So, will we ever get these briefcases? Well, despite the setbacks, renewed hope has emerged that the briefcase contents may see the light of day. A proposed bill known as the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill was unveiled in Parliament on March 9th of 2021, with plans revealed by Home Secretary Priti Patel a month prior. Among the various legislation changes include the ability for police to obtain information regarding the location of human remains where the suspect is deceased. This proposed change will therefore enable Greater Manchester Police the power to gain access to the briefcases on the grounds it could allow for the location of Bennett's body to be revealed. On April 30th, this bill is currently at the committee stage where further amendments can be proposed, with a report to be made to the Parliament by June 24th. Until then, the briefcases will likely remain in the hands of Brady's lawyer, with neither police nor the general public being granted access to its contents. And this one just, this one kind of irks me because it's clear this dude, just look at that face. That guy is a fucking monster. We've talked about Hindley before on this due to an art piece made to kind of look like her mugshot. While she looks like an unpleasant lassie, so to speak, just look at the deadness in Brady's eyes. There's no sympathy, no empathy, not a speck of humanity behind them, to the point where he literally, knowing he was going to die, said to his lawyer, hey, keep anybody from seeing these. What a piece of shit. Right? And the lawyer is, I don't blame him for just abiding by his client's wishes, the whole legal thing. But while it might, save his professional reputation, it really sucks in his reputation as a human being. Goddamn. But, hopefully that bill passes, and hopefully for the lawyer's soul and conscience, he's able to pass those along willingly to the police. And hopefully the family of Keith Bennett can get some closure. Alright, and at number 5 we have Dominion Tank Police, the partially found, censored alternate English dub of the anime series from the 1990s. So this one is interesting because it's not the spicy piece of media that is lost, it's actually the less spicy piece that is currently missing. Dominion Tank Police is a 4-part OVA series originally released in Japan in 1988. It was the first title licensed in North America by former anime distributor Central Park Media in 1992. Central Park Media then worked to get the OVA series broadcast on the Sci-Fi Channel's Saturday morning Saturday anime block, where it was in heavy rotation throughout the 1990s. However, the Sci-Fi Channel version of the series contained a number of changes from the original Japanese version and the uncut English dub. Not only were a number of visual cuts made, particularly of scenes involving phallic weapons as well as a striptease sequence, and the ending credits removed due to nudity, a number of redubs were made for language, innuendo, and crude humor present in the series. For example, references to urine/piss being stolen from the hospital in the uncut English dub were changed to plasma, and a reference to phallic weapons as erectocockies was changed to simply referring to them as weapons. Now, the edited English dub was never released on home video or shown on any channel other than the Sci-Fi Channel. Showtime would later show the series uncut, and international broadcasting in Canada and other territories used the uncut English dub. Now, currently 2 Sci-Fi Channel recordings of Dominion Tank Police were uploaded to YouTube on August 30th of 2017 and September 24th of 2020 by user Time-Based Collector, but these are only episodes 1 and 2 of the 4-part series. This one I find interesting because so often it's the full uncut version that is missing. Very early on, we talked about La Blue Girl, which had several, it was a hentai that had several scenes featuring a dwarf character cut from the American version because they thought he resembled a child too much, meaning that a fully uncut version of the film has gone missing and is probably still existing somewhere on VHS copies. But this one, it's the edited for TV version that has missing parts. I've not seen this in its entirety. I remember watching like part of the DVD that I rented from the library, and this was like the traditional 80s, early 90s anime. It had cat girls, it had big boobies. It's what everyone warned you about anime before anime got popular. And so the fact that it's the edited for TV version that is no longer available, it's kind of funny, honestly. But yeah, so if you taped a lot of sci-fi anime Saturday block back in the 90s and you have your old VHS tapes lying around, give them a look. You might have the missing episodes. Alright guys, at number 5, our spicy piece today is Gang Bang, a partially lost, unreleased Aisha Erotica album from 2016. Gang Bang, stylized in all caps, is the scrapped third studio album from American producer and singer Aisha Erotica, originally meant for an October 29th, 2016 release, with an iTunes pre-order going up on October 22nd of the same year. Several promo singles were released for the album, but for unknown reasons, the album was shelved within the month it was meant to be released. In 2023, Aisha Erotica shared her thoughts on the album, calling it poorly done and rushed, and that most of the tracks were half done or like throwaway material, possibly showing that the reason for the cancellation was dissatisfaction with the album. She also confirmed the existence of an, as of now, unleaked full photo shoot. This photo shoot, which has not resurfaced in full, was made centering around the fashion brand American Apparel. There's a 7-year-old board of American Apparel ads on her Pinterest, which might have been the inspiration for the shoot. Aisha would later reuse some of the pictures from the photo shoot as the cover art for the singles Love It, Redux, and Major. Several songs from the album were officially released with her 2016 EP, Come Shot. Additional unreleased tracks were released on her Whore1234 account, such as I Will in December of 2023, and the now deleted SoundCloud account, Lil Tay Nation, leaked the unreleased track Raw in full. On February 2nd of 2017, Aisha Erotica posted the playlist What You Never Got to Hear, a farewell to the Gang Bang era, on her main SoundCloud account, Pussy Sugar. This playlist contains 5 confirmed outtakes from the album, although none of the tracks featured were meant to be on the finished album. On July 11th of 2023, the full track list was leaked on Reddit, and so here's the list and their status. So of course there's Gang Bang, which has been found, Hit 'em, The Recipe, also found, Like My Daddy, which is lost, Crack Rock, which is found, Party Bitch, also found, Sex Drive, also found, Uncomfortable, featuring Erica Kane, or Erica Kanye, I don't know how to say that last name. That one's partially lost. The solo demo is the only thing we found. So Severe, which is an instrumental track, which is lost. 16, which are a remaster, also lost. And then the following 4 tracks have been found. Raw, Regret, Used, and Fins. I'll be honest, until making this video, I had never heard of Aisha Erotica, but it just seems kind of like a shock artist that is, everything. I mean, her SoundCloud account was called Pussy Sugar, really? Again, I've never listened to her music. I have no idea if it's any good, but it almost seems like this whole thing was just done for publicity. And, that's totally fine. That's a great way to make a name for yourself, but I don't know, it feels a little ridiculous, but it's still fun, so it's on the list. And at number 5, we have Feel It All, Lost Uncensored Tokyo Hotel music video from 2016. On March 27th of 2015, the German band Tokyo Hotel released the music video for their song Feel It All on their YouTube channel. The video, according to lead singer Bill Kaulitz, was based on films such as Requiem for a Dream, Kids, and Christian F. Wir Kinder von Bahnhof Zoo. Kaulitz plays himself as a drug addict in the video, where he is seen using drugs such as heroin and cocaine, engaging in prostitution, and passing out in a nightclub. According to the video's director, Kaulitz actually put needles in his skin to make the video as realistic as possible, but did so safely without actually doing any drugs. There are also scenes of other people engaging in drug use, as well as sexual acts, fighting, and there is a scene depicting someone dying of an accidental overdose. In the version available on YouTube, the nudity and skin and syringe contact were blurred out. it has been reported by the band and others associated with them that an uncensored version of the video exists with the nudity and syringe use not blurred out. It is unknown if this version has more scenes that were not suitable for YouTube. While the censored version is available on YouTube, the uncensored version has not been released. I'll be honest, guys, I put this one in here because my wife is a huge Tokyo Hotel fan, and I did not know that they had Lost Media. So when I was scrolling the wiki and saw this and saw, what it was labeled as, I thought, hey, what a great piece to put in as the 50th piece of lesser-known Lost Media on my channel in the Not Safe for Work entry. A way to, the series that has been the biggest success for my YouTube channel, and also because it involves a band that the person who has been the most instrumental in my success in life in recent years, it's one of her favorite bands. So you know what? I figured this was a great way to end this video. And that's going to be the video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. It's just a little over a year ago that we actually started doing Lost Media videos, and it's been quite a ride, hasn't it? It's definitely taught me a lot about Lost Media that I'd never heard of before, and I hope that those of you who are fans of the series had also never heard of these particular pieces. I mean, that's kind of the part of the point of the show, right? Anyway, I want to thank all of you so much for being with me on this journey, and for those of you watching this video for being basically monetary supporters of the channel as we work towards full monetization, because every little bit helps. Thank you all so much, and until next time, I'm Mr. Sean, this is Chimera Miniatures, and I sincerely hope that each and every one of you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.